Ignition. Autopilot activated. 100 miles per hour. Why don't you come on? I can take you for a ride. Why don't you come on? We can drive away tonight. Why don't you come on? I can take you for a ride.
A real clockwork soldier.
Generation Orange in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Generation Orange / Down in the Valley tonight. We're crossing over tonight, given a we want to do a half and half kind of thing tonight. Oh man, there's like serious echo. Hold on, I'm gonna rotate. Just here we go. See if that helps at all. So tonight we're gonna talk Dynamo. We're gonna talk Dash. We're gonna talk RGV Toros. We're gonna talk international soccer. We're gonna talk U.S. soccer. There's plenty to cover, and we are absolutely delighted to have none other than Hal Kaiser with us to kick off the show, no less. Hal Kaiser of such fame as Football Manager 2000. You said 18 Dynamo champion, MLS Cup champion with Dynamo.
2019.
Oh, 2019. So soon to be announced, of course, is the Houston Dynamo head coach. Of course. No, I'm just kidding.
Sure.
But also Hal Kaiser from such. Oh man, that's way better. I don't know what you just did, but that's beautiful. Hal Kaiser. Hal Kaiser also of Keeper Notes, and also Hal. I think I can officially call you this, our resident Houston Dash and Woso expert. I don't know how you feel about that title, but you've been now graced with that title, so congratulations for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll probably have to share it with Jen Cooper.
Oh, of course. No. Jen's not our resident. She's her own resident, but you're our resident. We're claiming you at the moment, although she'd probably fight me for you all the same. But no, seriously, we're really thankful you're able to come on and talk, especially considering the big news that was announced this week. With James Clarkson taking over as head coach of the Houston Dash. James Clarkson of such fame as the Dynamo Academy director and Brazos Valley Cavalry head coach and director, I guess, down there as well, with the PDL team down there. And now Dash head coach. That's a very interesting resume, to say the least, for a head coach of an NWSL club. I wanted to get your take on it because I know you've been tweeting. I know you've had time now to process and think. I wanted to get your take on James Clarkson as head coach of the Dash and what you think that might signal long term for the Dash as well, if you can kind of extrapolate that out into something a little deeper.
Sure. Yeah, and I heard about it, I guess, a day or two before it was announced,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be honest, my initial reaction was, let's just say it was good. I couldn't say anything publicly about it.
So you had the same reaction I did. Okay, good.
Right. So it was good. I had a day or two to think about it before it was actually, broken by Keeper Notes. And then another, 4 days before it was broken, or before it was announced officially.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, if you were to ask 100 Dash fans or NWSL fans or women's soccer experts, whatever, to list the name of 10 potential ideal coaches for the Dash, his name wouldn't show up on any of them. The reaction I saw from many people was who, which is not surprising, given what his role has been up to this point. So it wasn't. I don't think by any stretch of the imagination you would think, oh yeah, James Clarkson as NWSL coach. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so therefore, obviously, it presents a bit of a risk. He doesn't have any experience coaching in NWSL of any type. He doesn't really have. I mean, unless you consider Brazos Valley pro soccer, he doesn't have top flight pro soccer coaching experience of any kind. He hasn't coached women. I mean, that's a lot of first time things wrapped up in one coach. And so therefore, like I said, it presents a risk, which is a bit of an interesting decision coming off of having taken, a bit of a risk last year and hiring someone who'd never coached in the U.S., never coached club soccer in Vera Pau, and, having come off the back of that not working out so well, you would have thought that the obvious was to go a little bit more conventional with somebody who was more experienced, a steady hand, that you, sexy or not, that you knew what you were getting, and they didn't do that. I mean, we can speculate why. Doesn't really matter. It was done.
Mm-hmm.
So that having been done, I mean, thinking about then in the aftermath of that, the good points. I mean, one is I can say this now from several different sources that James was actually involved in different ways and had interest behind the scenes in the Dash over the last few years. So this isn't something that just popped up. He had very good ideas of what should be done with the Dash and what wasn't being done.
Mm-hmm.
From a business standpoint, I think from a coaching standpoint, so on and so forth. He came into his interview, by all accounts, extremely well prepared. I mean, I don't think they necessarily thought of him as the obvious candidate either, but he came in and basically had broken down, every single player, what they needed to work on, all the things that he was going to do to improve the team, and so on and so forth. So he was well prepared for the interview. He's been around, so he knows. He's seen firsthand what didn't work with Vera, what didn't work with Randy, and what he needs to do differently. He's already been very open with the players. He's reached out to all of them, had frank discussions, let them unload on all their frustrations over the last few years, which is good too. I think his reputation from an interpersonal standpoint, I think people will tell you nothing but good things about him, which after last year is a plus. And if he came in and was successful, it wouldn't certainly be the first time that you saw kind of an out of left field hire that actually worked out. He's been here. He knows the Dynamo system. He knows how to work the system. He knows what he's getting himself into, which other coaches maybe might not necessarily be the case. I think there's some positive aspects to it. The biggest concern I would have is if you had a very good GM or technical director, like a Charlie Namo, for example, who built the Western New York Flash team, which won the championship and became the North Carolina Courage, and they're the best team in the league right now. If you had someone like that behind him who knew wheeling and dealing and knew the international scene very well and could identify players and do good trades and so on and so forth, that would be, you feel a lot more comfortable. I don't know that he necessarily has that depth of experience and knowledge to provide that. So then the question becomes, who does? And the answer is nobody. There's not going to be a GM from what I understand. I mean, despite the fact that Brian Ching was there as managing director. My understanding is that's ending. That's yet to be confirmed, but that Shing won't be involved anymore, which, let's be honest, he wasn't really a WOSO GM technical director anyway.
Absolutely.
So there's a big gap there now, and maybe he can coach up the team this year, but then what about long-term roster building? And even this year, where there's going to be a lot of challenges, especially with it being a World Cup team, there's a lot of holes still in this team. How are they going to take what the team was last year and turn it into a contender? And that part is less obvious. I think he can coach it up. I mean, I hear from people who've played for him before really good things about he's a great coach and all that kind of stuff. How do they build the roster?
Absolutely. Jen's show this week, the Mixed Zone, she had a chance to interview or talk with, I guess, talk with James. Did you get a chance to listen to that interview?
I got through half of it so far. I haven't been able to. It's been a busy couple of days. So I haven't been able to get through all of it.
Okay. Just curious because I did get to listen to it. It was fantastic, so I'd highly recommend. Yes, that's a shameless plug for Jen's podcast on our own podcast. That's Mixed Zone, and Edson will pull the link to the actual Twitter account for you guys so you can pull it up because it's fantastic and totally worth a listen, especially if you're a WOSO fan, especially if you're a Dash fan, or if you're someone who was a Dash fan who's questioning this move. Definitely give him a listen in that chat because I think there's a lot of value in how he's approaching things and what he has to say. Now, of course, we've had plenty of very, very well-spoken people between both Dynamo and Dash that did not pan out for one reason or another. Because they're well-spoken does not guarantee that they're going to excel at their position or their role. So you had mentioned something on Twitter, and I think I totally agree with it, and I wanted to bring it up because it brings me to my next question. But you mentioned on Twitter that one of your primary concerns is who did the Dash surround Clarkson with to ensure that he's prepared and ready to handle the duties of also, as you noted, building the additional components of the roster, preparing for the NWSL draft, and preparing from a scouting standpoint for opposition as well. I think it would be naive to think you go into a season or into a match not knowing what your opponents are going to be doing because you simply don't have WOSO experience or knowledge. And I think there's no reason to disagree with that. So transitioning from that, the question I have for you is, do you see any possibility where the Dash don't bring Eddie Robinson back at this point? I think it's pretty clear to say that he at least had some impact on the turnaround that took place with the team with him coming on and a very stark difference in how that team played from before him and after him. So I wanted to toss that to you.
Yeah, I think provided that he wants to come back, which my understanding is he's also very vested in the Dash and has had a lot of strong feelings about them all along, even prior to getting involved with the team. I suspect he'll be back. I think he'll be one of those two assistant manager positions that they have. We'll see, but that's my expectation, and that's good. I think he did do a good job last season. I talked to some players, and I was curious how it would work out between him and Vera because you wouldn't. The personality mix there wasn't necessarily obvious, but I think
that's an understatement.
I think right. I think he was. My impression was he was well aware of the issues and acted accordingly and provided sort of a nice buffer between the players and Vera and kept things a little light. And he's obviously very experienced, knows his stuff, so he's able to coach pretty well as well. So yeah, I would think that he would provide that. I think he'd also be the first to tell you though that he's also not going to bring to the table, that deep knowledge and insight of player X, Y, and Z, and hey, let's go get this player from Japan or what have you. I will say, with James, the one thing that I keep hearing that gives me a lot of hope as well is he's very well aware of what his shortcomings are, and he's not shy whatsoever of asking anybody and everybody for help to fill that.
I've heard the exact same thing, and that is definitely one of those things that with a coach with no NWSL experience and no professional experience, as long as he understands his limitations and can. And also, I think it benefits him that he has such a deep network to be able to reach out to people that can bring those qualities as an assistant coach or any other position within the front office that it becomes available. But yeah, I mean, it's like,
and shows that he's open to learning about how to be a good coach in NWSL. Because obviously, it's a different coaching style to coach men and to coach women.
Absolutely. Well, and also just that he acknowledges, hey, I don't know everything. Hey, I don't have it all figured out. That kind of thing. I think that, looking at previous coaches, which I realize we've only had really 3, previous coaches, that may not have always been the case. That's not a slight to any of them. It's an acknowledgement that, there were weaknesses there that may not have been addressed specifically. And I'm hopeful, kind of like you are, I'm hopeful at this point based on what I've heard, based on what I've seen, and based on what I've been able to kind of call from various sources that's not public information yet, about what he's working on, what he's been doing, how he's been engaged, who he's been reaching out to, those kinds of things. They tell me that he understands what he needs to do. He understands, he understands that he does need that knowledge that he doesn't have, and he's very open to engaging to find that knowledge and to find the pieces that can help bring that knowledge. I will be very interested to see who they bring in to fill out the rest of the technical roster or technical staff, because there are definitely some people out there that can bring those things. And then also, if Ching is really on the way out, which I'm hearing the same things you've heard and going from there, if Ching really is on his way out, that's a position that really does need to be replaced. And if it's being replaced, it needs to be replaced quickly, because you don't want to bring somebody in after the draft and then tell them, okay, now you have control over personnel on the team and helping James build a better roster for 2019. That's unfair to anybody who would be brought in that position to have to, you have assets and draft picks that you can absolutely use to build the roster even more. And while drafting is great, that's not necessarily end all be all. There are trades to be made. There are transactions to make, signings to make. Granted, we have a very full roster already, but there is room for improvement, room for growth. And I feel like they absolutely need somebody in that technical management role that knows how to build an NWSL roster, has that NWSL experience, and also has that experience finding players too. I don't think we can sell short the necessity to find players, not just domestically but abroad, that help improve the quality of the team.
Yeah, and that's where, my understanding is that there won't be the James is GM and coach in the same way that Randy was going into his final season.
Mm-hmm.
So, and therein lies my concern. But again, I think James is reaching out to everyone that he knows, and getting all the advice that he can. Now, I think in the best of all worlds, you'd like to have that knowledge internally, that experience internally, and then supplement it with bringing in people and reaching out to people that But we're not in the best of all worlds. So
absolutely, for sure.
Just have to make do with what we have.
Yeah. And that's not to say that he can't excel without that person necessarily, the specific position being filled by an individual person. His contacts, his network runs deep, and if he can tap that in the proper ways, really the biggest concern I then have at that point is just an NWSL understanding the ins and outs when it comes to player personnel, transactions, trades, who can be available when. Yeah. That rules book is not short, and it's not an easy read. You could almost call it legalese in some ways. Now, there are some people out there that would be perfect for that position, as an assistant coach even, just to be able to help him wade through that mess of crap. But at the same time, at this point, I think just my sense is it's, from a fan perspective, it would be very beneficial to at least give him a chance to prove himself, because you just don't know yet what he can bring to the table in terms of, from an NWSL standpoint, from a women's team standpoint, from a professional team standpoint. We obviously know the qualities he brings, but do those transition professionally? And I suppose we will find out in not very long from now, just a couple short months away.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I had heard that I wanted to bring up to kind of ease some of the concerns is that I've heard that James was recently just up at A&M with Coach G up there, prepping for the draft and going over players that are available for the draft. And to me, that says, again, ties to the same stuff we've been saying, which is that his network runs deep and he's not afraid to tap it. And that's always been a Coach G, that I've respected, that has immense knowledge of the college game. But, we've also had coaches with immense knowledge with the college game. So it's kind of a catch-22 there, but at the same time, if you're pulling that, that contact to work on the draft ahead of time, that's pretty fantastic. And that shows a willingness to embrace, hey, I don't know it. I need somebody who does, who can help me. This guy really, really can help me, and prepare for it. The flip side of that is just because you know who you want to draft doesn't mean you're going to get them when you expect to get them, and you have to prepare in other ways. But I guess we'll see that very, very soon. So switching gears real quick on you, Hal, not to switch gears on you, but I have to kind of at this point. Earlier this week, the AFF, Afghanistan Football Federation, had its president suspended for 90 days pending review into allegations of sexual abuse levied by prominent Afghanistan women's national team players. Personally, myself, I was actually very shocked to see FIFA do anything about it. But I'm curious from your perspective, just because I haven't really seen you tweet a lot about this, and maybe you don't want to go on record about it, that's fine too. But do you believe this will lead to any real change within the AFF?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I've been tied into what's been going on there since about April, which is when around the time that this ridiculous contract was first tabled to the players, and when the key people outside of the country hired a lawyer to start preparing for taking this to FIFA. Mm-hmm. I think obviously the things that have happened so far, both internally and from FIFA, internal to Afghanistan and from FIFA, are nice steps. But I think at the same time you have to recognize the nature of the country and the cultural issues and everything that comes with that. And you hope for the best and hope that things improve, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I wouldn't expect a renaissance in Afghanistan national women's team football. I wouldn't expect a lot of interest from the federation, just as there isn't in a number of parts of the world. Hummel was a big driver, with all this going on. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't. I mean, if I were to put money on it, I would put money on nothing really improves. Okay,
and that's about what I anticipate. I wanted to get your take on it because it was such a big story. And again, I was kind of floored that they did anything. It's just not what I expected from FIFA in general. So that was good to see for sure. But like you said, I mean, it's almost like this is to kind of quell the growing frustrations about it and less to actually address anything going on. But then again, I said the same thing about the U.S. U.S. Gymnastics Board, and things are changing pretty dramatically over there right now. So, and a lot of similarities actually between what's going on. Not quite exactly the same, but definitely some similarities. Although, like you said, Afghanistan and most of the Middle East and other parts of the world, there are cultural differences, to say the least, that dictate that things run very differently and things are handled very differently. And it's still a much more taboo subject there than it is even here.
Yeah, and to be honest, I actually expected FIFA to do more because the case that was put together and the supporting data and proof and whatnot was pretty strong. So I expected that they might actually just suspend the Afghan Football Federation altogether, pending some improvement plan. And
did we lose you, Hal? I think we lost Hal. Well, That's unfortunate because it was a great conversation. Well, Hal, thank you very much for joining us. I don't think I'm going to worry about trying to get him back at this point. We've only got about 10 minutes or so, actually about 8 minutes left before he needed to run anyways. So we're going to go ahead and let Hal
I'm actually still.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I'm still here. We're just fading in and out. You fade in and out on me every now and then as well.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to let you go anyways because it's about that time regardless. That way you can go and hang out with your kids and enjoy the rest of your evening. We definitely appreciate you coming on, Hal, and we hope to get you back on again sometime real soon, especially as the NWSL draft comes up real soon, and talk Dash stuff, man. It's definitely hopeful times. We'll see how much hope transitions into actual change, but we'll talk about that later. Again, Hal, thank you very much, and have a good night, man.
Yeah. Thanks. My pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye.
So, yeah, I mean, as he was saying, and to be fair, I don't know all the ins and outs. He's got way more access to what was going on and what's been, what's been reported. I'm kind of going off reports. But, he, as he said, he expected more from FIFA than what was levied. And to me, with my experience with FIFA and just previous stuff in the past, not even this stuff, but just stuff in general, this to me felt like a pretty monumental thing. I mean, they basically banned /suspended 5 or 6 people, in the top of the. Can you click that for me? 5 or 6 people. 5 or 6 people. 5 or 6 people in the Afghan Federation, basically board of, council, whatever they call themselves, president, vice president, other things as well, for the allegations. And while that again, like I said, I mean, to me, it was monumental just because I haven't seen it in the past and because of where that is. But on the flip side of it, listening to Hal, I get the sense that there really should have been more done. And that doesn't, I guess, come as a surprise to anybody. And to be fair, the suspension for the president is only 90 days pending further investigation into the allegations. And we know FIFA to know pending investigation into allegations means we need 90 days to sweep this under the rug. And look, FIFA has its purpose, but there are times when FIFA's corruption and FIFA's process of handling things is very clearly biased in a specific direction. And a perfect example of FIFA's sexism happened just last week when Ada Hegerberg was announced as the Women's Player of the Year, or Ballon d'Or. I think she was Ballon d'Or. I don't remember, one of the two, because unfortunately I wasn't able to keep up. But
yeah, it was Ballon d'Or.
Ballon d'Or. She was announced as Ballon d'Or, and a media member who was there to interview her asked about her thoughts on twerking. Sorry,
no, it was
twerking.
the DJ that was there.
Oh, that's
at
a whole
the
lot
event.
better. That's a whole lot better.
Yeah, the DJ at the event is like, "Oh, can you twerk for us?"
Oh my God. I mean, because I didn't get a chance to watch it. I didn't get a chance to see it because, frankly, I don't care about those types of awards and stuff like that. But I mean, just how can you? I mean, just in this day and age I don't know. I just give it, I just roll my eyes. It hurts to think about. Can you click on one of those two so I can see what the hell everybody's talking about when it comes to, no, what are you doing?
What?
Go back to the tweet. I want to see what James Harden's doing that makes everybody go, oh my goodness. I want to see it.
7th game of the Western Conference.
I'm sorry, you guys don't get to see this. Hold on just a second. You could have left the volume on. Oh, he didn't. Oh, he didn't.
He did the Balotelli.
Oh, he was not happy. Oh, man. They're leading the Lakers. That's awesome. But, yeah, I mean, to get back to the Dash, I mean, at the end of the day, Clarkson is a good hire. If you are looking for someone to help you develop players and help you improve an existing roster, which I think to some extent, maybe 80 to 90% of the Dash is really that right now, is we need to develop these players to be even better than they are. We need to take the pieces we already have, which are extremely talented, and help them grow into something bigger. Osmar's not wrong with that statement, by the way. But, take what's already there and formulate it into more than it even was last year, which, to be fair, at the end of last season, the second half of that season, they were phenomenal. And, as Hal said, I do believe everything that I've heard is that Eddie's probably going to come back. And if Eddie does come back, I think that's a sign of very good things to come for the Dash, barring that they have one person with NWSL knowledge and experience to help guide and help lead James. My biggest fear, my biggest concern is that we have another Randy Waldrum situation on our hands where you have somebody who has been, part and parcel to the college game or to the developmental system, but has not had any experience professionally. And then you bring him in and he struggles because he puts too much faith in college players. He puts too much faith in systems over player personalities and player capabilities. And I just, at the end of the day, that's my biggest concern is the lack of NWSL experience. And, there's 2 positions to fill out with 2 assistant coaches and some other technical staff. And I guess at the end of the day, when they fill those out, I guess we'll have our answer whether they're going to put enough, stock into the fact that this is NWSL or whether they're putting the stock in the fact that this is just a women's game. I use the word just, facetiously, not intending as a slight, but intended to kind of point out the obvious flaw in that thinking in and of itself. With that being said, we are going to go ahead and take a break for just a couple minutes. When we come back, we're going to talk about... It's 7:30. What did I say we were talking about at 7:30? Down in the Valley?
Down in the Valley.
So we're going to go switch to Down in the Valley. Are we going to get Jacob or anybody on tonight?
Ray.
Ray's coming on. Oh, sweet. Means I get to rag on Ray. Sweet. It's a great day, guys. Seriously, we'll be back in about 3 to 4 minutes. We're going to give Ray a call, and he'll join us shortly. Thanks, guys. We'll be back. I am...
Say you won't leave me. I know it's too easy to run away. I know you wanted this. I never wanted this to end. But now we're going down. Whoa. Picking up the pieces that we left here. We just left here.
No way of knowing where to go. Go. Where to go. Go. No way of knowing where to go. No way of knowing where to go.
Yeah, just barely. Let me see if I can connect the speaker here. Sweet, can you talk? All right, perfect. I heard Sean, he was getting ready to rag on. You're funny. You're so funny, I forget you perform at comedian side acts outside of Houston. I said, you're so funny that you get ready ever so often to perform comedy acts outside of Houston. Okay. A ver si no pasa una tragedia.
So this was supposed to be the Down in the Valley intro, but apparently
okay. So you're killing it. So why don't you just go ahead and switch us to video so they're not sitting there staring? Okay, are we? Okay,
that's fine. No, they heard that.
So at least that was supposed to be the DITV intro, and clearly that was not the DITV intro. That was the "What the hell are you doing?" moment of the day. So first of all, shout out to everybody in chat right now. Appreciate you guys joining chat. Appreciate what James Harden just threw down on the Lakers. That was pretty fantastic. The Balotelli. Now we are going down in the valley with Edson Ochoa and Ray.
Oh man, I honestly miss doing Down in the Valley, but I mean, if there's nothing to talk about, then why be on?
I mean, you guys will have plenty to talk about in like a month.
Oh yeah, I mean it's only a month away, but trying to get some information out of Toro's PR world today, I got next to nothing.
Well, I mean, trying to get any sort of rise out of the Toro's Twitter account right now is near impossible. Although credit to whomever is managing it right now, they have jumped into the fray again and started to pick it back up. I'm wondering if maybe whoever was managing that took a vacation or something. Which, hey, credit to them. You finally get a vacation. That's more.
No. Okay.
Oh, he's got the inside info. Here we go.
I got a little. I'm going to steer off guard a little bit, but today, working a Rio Grande Valley Vipers game, let's just say I ran into Toro's PR people there, and I go, "Hey, look, when am I going to get some news? I want to go in blazing guns today, steal the show stopping, jet flying, limousine riding, all that type of stuff."
All right, Ric Flair. Are you the Mexican Ric Flair? Are you Alberto Del Rio?
El Patron.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's his name in AAA. El Patron. Oh, is he still in AAA?
Is he? I think
he's bouncing around so many places because he can't keep a job because he keeps skipping out on pay-per-views and live shows. Anyway, sorry, Ray, I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
Yeah.
Continue. Yeah.
So yeah, I tried to steal some thunder lightning bolts today out of Toro's PR world, but they are just very, very quiet.
Look, the Dynamo do the same thing. They'll go quiet for a couple of weeks, and then they'll ramp up for about a week before they drop something. So all that means is you're about to have something dropped in about a week, give or take, maybe 2 weeks. They're just prepping. They're just getting ready. I'm just telling you right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, all I heard was tryouts for the Toros sometime in January 2019, and that was it.
Well, of course, they're not going to tell you anything, just like the Dynamo don't tell anybody anything either. Hell, I know for a fact that there's 2 or 3 signings that should be made this offseason for the Dynamo, and we have heard crickets about any of them. So just take it with a grain of salt, man. It's always quiet, and then they drop everything. And you know what they did last year? It was like a week before Christmas, and I was like, oh, they've already took off. They've went on vacation, and then bam, 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 bam. We had like 3 signings in a row, and I was like, where the hell did all this come? Oh, they had trades. That's what it was. We had the AJD stuff drop, and we had the or no, it wasn't AJD because
it was the roster moves. Who stayed?
Yeah, all that dropped. It was like bam,
and then all of a sudden, Chuy Enriquez is here, Kyle Adams is here, Connor Donovan.
I mean, just out of nowhere, it was silent, and then boom, everything at once. That's what I'm saying. Like, silence is not the worst thing in the world. It just means they're prepping moves, and social media is busy prepping for that. And to be fair, social media with the Toros, they're doing a lot of other jobs right now. So, they're prepping stuff.
That's kind of the feeling I got today after today's basketball game with the Rockets affiliate down here. So I tried to rattle the snake a little bit, but nothing. All I got was the Swope Park and St. Louis to the east, and nothing else.
Well, it's going to be crickets. It's just how it is.
So I'm guessing they gave you the Jerson Echeverry treatment?
Oh, dang.
Oh.
The no comment?
I mean, to be fair, Ray probably deserved it at this point, right? Like,
no, not really.
He pushes the buttons, and they go, all right, cool. In the offseason, you're going to regret that. He just didn't know they say that. So Harry says, here's the problem with me saying that it's about a month before we start seeing seeing stuff pick up in terms of Toros. He says USL preseason starts in 40 days. He's not wrong, but here's the thing: the Toros did the same thing last season, and it didn't turn out all that bad for them. They had a great end of the season run. Maybe early 2/3 of the season wasn't great, but they had the players, they had the talent. So, and the other thing is, and I mentioned this to Edson, I have reason to believe that there will be 0 players called up from RGV to the Dynamo this season. So that means you're going to keep. Go ahead.
I kind of have that feeling too with the last article I wrote for BGN at work. I just want to say,
you should pimp that article out, Edson, just so you know.
Yes.
I got to teach Edson how to be producer.
I'm getting an article where we're going to be talking about that.
Oh, all right, cool. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I got it already.
I'm maybe thinking 1 to 2 casualties just for training camp purposes. That's just my end of the stick.
Oh yeah, training camp. Yeah, I could see training camp. I don't think beyond that though. That's my point. I don't think you're not going to have any early season moves from RGV to the Dynamo.
Well, this may not be considered or moved or not, but the signing of Kai Green to San Antonio was one that caught me off guard.
Why did it catch you off guard? The dude played, 5 matches this season?
Well, 5, 10, regardless here. This is my theory behind it. I figured they would need someone with some experience at the USL level. Really?
That's not the RGV way, man. We're getting rid
I know it's not I know it's not the RGV way, but you got to have some veteran presence instead of hoping for these young 21-year-old kids to hang on for a 2-1 lead, hoping that some last-minute tragedy and a goal gets leaked in, and instead of having 3 points in the bag, it's only 1 point.
Tell that to New York Red Bulls 2. Tell that to Seattle 2. Tell that to SK.
Seattle 2 is dumpster fire.
Well, I know, but there's other 2s that I'm trying to think of that I can't remember.
Okay, so if you're asking me to tell that to New York Red Bulls 2, didn't they win a championship?
They did. That's my point. You're sitting there saying you can't rely on the young kids, and I'm like, well, they did. Why can't you?
Well, they did because they've been around longer than the Dynamo and Toros have.
Oh, of course, but you also have players now that have a year of experience in USL at the USL championship level. That's what we call it now, USL championship. At the USL championship level, you have a couple of players that you're going to have one that's at least probably a loan out to RGV for this season in McHugh. He's not going to stick with the Dynamo this season as a homegrown.
I don't think so either.
So I think he ends up with RGV. You've got plenty of pieces with. I mean, we talked about that at the end of last season or the end of this past season with Down in the Valley. Talked about how you guys have a lot of very good pieces right now. You have a very good core of players, and there's not a lot of work to necessarily be done to improve that at the USL Championship level. Now, if you guys were an MLS club, that's a totally different ballgame. But as a USL Championship team, you guys are set up to be a very, very formidable force next season. And the last thing you want to do is go out and get a veteran that's going to cause problems in the locker room, cause problems with they're expecting to get time over younger kids, whatever the case may be. Veteran experience, it sounds great on paper, doesn't always pan out to be the best in the actual, actually playing with it. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, and it's just something that just came across while writing that article at the time, because it took some time for me to piece it out, lay it out, and then put it into fruit, And that's just one of the things that just came to mind. Okay, hoping that we don't lose Kai Green, hoping that we don't lose some of these other veteran players like Todd Horton, for example.
Todd.
No, when he wrote the article.
Oh, sorry, I was confused there. I was like,
yeah, this was when I.
Well, let me ask it to you this way. Okay. What does Kai Green bring other than the experience that another one of your outside backs doesn't bring? You have a very good right back right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I say very good. You have a reasonably good right back right now.
Well, what about the left side?
They got rid of Derek Luke, which tells me they're probably going to sign somebody this offseason. I don't know who.
Yeah, because Derek Luke was probably injury prone and never got back into
Derek Luke's injury was not injury prone. Derek Luke's problem is the dude could not run after he had got that knee injury he sustained 2 seasons ago. Which I called out in preseason with Edson in San Antonio. I was like, dude, this dude cannot run. He's got no pace left. He is just getting burned. It was bad.
No, you were there. I didn't get to see that match. You guys traveled to San Antonio.
We did, and it was a fun match to be at. It was great that it ended in a draw across the 90. Or no, what was that? More like, I mean, it was 90 for the draw, and then they played another like
15 minutes.
Yeah, 15 minutes after, and that's when it went to hell. But it was great before that. I mean, it was tons of fun. And we got our first chance to see a lot of players, and I was like, oh, they're not going to make it this season. And sure enough, they didn't make it this season.
And you called out most of them. You called out John Montaño. You called out Derek Luke. You called out, I believe.
Jeff. Continue.
I'm not sure if you called out the Spaniard. What was his name? Guillermo Delgado.
Yeah.
I don't think we had enough time to watch him in that match. Mm-hmm. That was the problem.
I know for sure you said John Montaño, and I know for sure you said Derek Luke.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned that Connor Donovan and Kyle Adams would be the pair.
Yeah. I mean, look, I know it's hard for people to believe when I say this, but I do understand soccer a little bit, just a little bit. And no, seriously, like, look, okay, I got a lot to learn when it comes to soccer on the professional scale and things like that. But from a tactical standpoint, you can watch players and you can see if they're ready. You can. It just takes time to watch them and actually paying attention to them versus paying attention to the match. And since it was preseason and I didn't really care what the final result was, I was able to spend time watching individual players, how they would attack the ball, how they would defend the ball, how they would, attack players, how they would play off the ball, how they would move off the ball, how they were communicating on and off the ball, things like that. And that's the same stuff that Gerson sees, week after week. But being able to see it as a fan, most fans don't really do that. They don't take the time to watch. They take the time to see the game and see the match that's going on, but they don't take a step back to kind of go, let's see how that player performs in that position, especially a Manny Padilla or a Chuy Enriquez or I didn't get to see Carlos Small in person, but holy crap, Carlos Small, type things. But you can watch players and you can see, do they have it? Do they not have it? Are they starting to tire after 15 minutes? If they're starting to tire after 15 minutes, they're probably not going to last. You know exactly who I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, what is important to remember about the Toros is it's going to be similar season after season. We're not going to see this huge bunch of signings all front-loaded in the offseason because at the end of the day, does it really matter if you sign a guy 2 weeks before preseason or 4 weeks before preseason? Does it really matter if you sign a guy 1 week after USL playoffs ends or if you sign a guy 1 week before preseason starts? Doesn't matter. The guy's going to get the same amount of training and the same amount of, fitness in either way. So my point is, for RGV fans is don't get upset or frustrated at the lack of news coming out. It's going to come. Don't worry. I'm telling you right now, it's going to come. It always does. But I just saw that. But also understand that sometimes patience is a virtue. You guys didn't have Carlos Small to start the season last year.
No, he was a midseason addition.
He was a midseason addition, and I don't think there's a single one of you right now that would tell me he wasn't one of the best players on your squad last season to end the season.
Yeah, even the other
definitely he was definitely if not the best, one of the top 5.
So, and I mentioned this on Down in the, or maybe it wasn't, maybe it was RG, maybe it was Gen Orange a few weeks ago, but I mentioned that one of the things that I've heard is likely is that you guys are going to end up with 2, 3, 4, 2 or 3 additional right now international players that have experience with their national team in some way, shape, or form. Now, that's not to say that they've got experience with the Argentinian national team or anything like that, but they've got experience with decent national teams, and that experience trumps your 5 years of experience with Kai Green. So when you're concerned about your left back position, just remember Sean told you this on the air live. Don't worry about the left back position. They got that covered. Worry about the rest.
Okay, I'm gonna and Sean I trust, and
make that into a shirt.
Yeah, you don't want my face on a shirt. That's a bad idea, dude.
You want the beard. You don't want the eyes or anything else.
Just the beard. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Hashtag Houston beards. It's a trend. But okay, let's switch gears for a minute. Let's talk Gerson for just a minute. Go ahead,
okay.
Ray. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
Okay, go ahead.
So here's a question for you. How confident are you with the squad as currently assembled, with Gerson at the helm, that you guys can make the playoffs this year?
Okay, what squad? Because I fully trust in Gerson.
Okay.
Because just remember that we don't have a squad going into 2019. Because I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Okay, play devil's advocate, please do.
Okay, I don't know the terms of contracts of, say, I don't know, a Todd Wharton, of a Camilo Monroy, of a Connor Donovan, of a Pablo Aguilar, or Chuy Enriquez, or a Caliche, the contract. I mean, I don't have those things in front of me, so it would be unfair to give a rating on a team that hasn't been announced officially, to rather say, oh, I like my chances at a 70% to make the playoffs, because it would be unfair on me, and it would be unfair to the fans, because, of course, they want to know who the signings are and who's officially coming back. So I can't give you a fair response with that.
Okay, I'll accept that as I'm not going to respond because I don't have enough information in front of me to do so.
Exactly.
I'll accept that. However, you, sir, have set yourself up for a challenge this season. You and
I think everyone has, and yet not everyone responds.
No, it's just you and me now, Ray. We're going to predict the RGV final win-loss record for the season, including draws. The person who gets the farthest away from the actual.
Well, let's play Price is Right rules. Closest without going over.
Okay. You can't do that with points, because all that takes is the difference between a draw and a win. And that's going to encourage us to go under. I'm not playing the under game. Come on now. You got to be having a faith in your team to give them more points than they're worth. Come on now, son. This is soccer. This isn't Price is Right. No, this is deal or no deal type here is what this is. No, seriously though. It's whoever gets closest, and you can go over. Over shouldn't be a bad thing. It means you had more faith in them than you thought than you expected them. So what I'm saying is, and I'm not looking for a percentage or anything like that. I'm looking for, we're going to go through the schedule when it comes out. So basically a week before the season actually begins, and we're going to go.
Hey! Here's one factor that you got to throw into consideration. It may not affect the Toros, but it might affect the rest of the league. The Ottawa Fury, with the CONCACAF coming down on them, that might push back the schedules a little bit longer due to their non-sanctioning form. So we might have to wait a little longer. So
it'll get cleared up.
I'm just
hearing right now, he's setting up the excuses already. We're not even going to do this for like 4 weeks, and you're already setting up excuses. Come on, Ray. You're better than that, dude. You're better than that.
Play fair, No,
I got you.
So there's no roster right now.
No, and I get that. And what I'm saying is, once we kind of have an idea of what that's going to be, even if we have to skip the first week of the season, we'll do that. But at the end of the day, this is coming down to the following. You and I, and you know what? Edson's going to join us because he doesn't get away without joining us on this. So it's win-loss draw record once the roster is somewhat finalized. And what we're going to do, and it's just a guess at win-loss draw. We're not going to go match by match, because that would be, you can break it down match by match, but you don't have to. The one who gets closest, no, it can't be the one that gets farthest away, whichever of us three gets farthest away, and I'm going balls to the wall, guys, has to get a tattoo of the opposing rival crest.
Oh,
no. No.
You see these chickens over here, boys? I know nothing about the USL compared to these guys, and they're going no.
Not a tattoo. Not a tattoo.
Not a tattoo.
All right. Look at these chickens, dude. Wow, man. Ooh, man. I'm sitting here, no problem whatsoever. I would get an FC Dallas crest. Well, that's because I know I'm going to win. But I'd get an FC Dallas crest on my body somewhere. You can get it on your side or something. Nobody has to see it.
No.
You're just not a fan of tattoos, huh? All right.
No, I'm a fan of tattoos, but I'm not a fan of having a San Antonio crest on my body.
I think Harry would be all about it. Harry, you want to make this deal? Harry, you make this deal with me right now. We'll do it. I will gentleman handshake on that right now. Oh, dude, y'all are going to get blown up so hardcore. It's beautiful. All I'm saying is, look, I put it out there on the line, no problem whatsoever, no hesitation, and y'all are just like, no.
No, I'm not a firm believer in tattoos.
Okay, I mean, I get that, but there's nothing else I could do for you that would be nearly as bad as a tattoo for me. So, I mean, you chickened out. That's all it comes to.
Seems legit.
I mean,
so we touched upon the whole.
Yes, a tattoo, Harry. That would mean what I'm saying is if I win, you have to get a RGV Toros tattoo somewhere on your body. It doesn't have to be visible, but somewhere on your body. We will take a picture, of course, but somewhere on your body.
Anyways, so we kind of touched.
Harry. That's all I'm saying. It's to Harry.
So
right
we
now.
kind of touched up upon this subject just a little while ago.
Blues fan says, "Nah, Monterey for you, Edson."
Oh hell no!
That's even worse.
Hell no!
That would be like me getting an Arsenal tattoo. I couldn't even go that far, and it has nothing to do with that tattoo. It has everything to do with Arsenal.
Are you a Spurs fan, Sean?
I am a Spurs fan. That's right.
I feel bad for him.
UCL advancing round of 16 Spurs fan. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. Are you an Arsenal fan?
No.
Who are you a fan of in the Premier League?
Liverpool.
Okay, I can't knock you for Liverpool. That's a good team right now. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I love Jurgen Klopp. That's a fantastic coach.
Yeah, I love heavy metal football.
And yes, Harry, that is the deal right there. That is the absolute deal right there.
That kind of went. Anyways, so we kind of touched upon the subject.
We'll work out the details and we'll talk about it on the first Down in the Valley podcast of 2019. Oh, Sergio, you're banned forever. All right, continuing. Sorry, I didn't mean to take over Down in the Valley. You know me. I'm not afraid to mix it up.
Okay.
I'm assuming that was him and not us, right? No, because ours said something when the doorbells rang. I was like, "What the?" Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, it was probably my end, but thankfully I'm nowhere near the door.
So we touched upon the subject with Ottawa Fury versus CONCACAF, and so basically what happened is that all of a sudden CONCACAF came out and said that Ottawa Fury FC, which is part of the USL, cannot participate with the USL, or cannot be sanctioned with the USL for the 2019 season. And so they actually just released a statement today because I'm guessing they saw all this backlash, and they even addressed this in the announcement, which says CONCACAF typically does not comment publicly on sanctioning matters. But due to the lack of clarity regarding the state of the process and the unilateral statements from various parties in regard to the Ottawa Fury Football Club participating in the 2019 season of the United Soccer League, we would like to clarify the following. Under international sanctioning rules, clubs that are affiliated to an association may only join competitions in another association's territory under exceptional circumstances. For the sanctioning of such play in our region, approval must be given by CONCACAF and FIFA. CONCACAF to date has not received a formal request from any party to continue sanctioning the participation of the Ottawa Fury in the 2019 season of the USL, despite public announcements by Ottawa Fury that it would be doing so. In the fall of 2018, after unilateral public statements made by Ottawa Fury and before any sanctioning application was made to any governing body, CONCACAF clearly advised the Canadian Soccer Association of its concerns regarding this matter. A further written correspondence to the CSA followed in November, providing guidance on our view that as it stands to date, we do not see exceptional circumstances given the launch of the Canadian Premier League for the 2019 season. As the governing body for international football in North and Central America and the Caribbean, we are committed to govern on behalf of all of our 41 associations and key stakeholders.
You really needed to read that whole thing. Everybody just tuned out. That thing was ridiculous. You could have just said, yeah, they got sanctions. I mean, that would have been sufficient. It would have been good. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, nobody wants to listen to that crap for 5 minutes or however long that was.
I figure there'd be at least one person that
you can post. Well, that's the thing, that you can post it. You can show it and then summarize it just for future reference.
Yeah, but then the people listening to the podcast would have no idea what we're talking about.
You could shout out the link. I mean, I'm just saying, like, that's got to be the most boring minute and a half of a podcast ever.
And you're not getting.
I've listened to some pretty boring podcasts.
And you're not getting it back, people.
Yeah, that's a minute and a half you will never get back. Harry says he calls BS that Ottawa did not send it in. Did CAS sit on it, or did CONCACAF president throw it away? I bet, to be honest with you, CAS sat on it without realizing it. One of those got lost in the shuffle type things. It happens all the time. I'm not gonna correct Edson's pronunciation of Ottawa. He can say Ottawa. Ottawa. Yeah, he could say it. We call that the Spanglish version of it. I was going to say Mexican, but I was trying to be appropriate and respectful of the heritage and culture. Hashtag respect. But in all seriousness, it's an issue. But it's going to get addressed before the beginning of the season. I'm not. It doesn't concern me whatsoever to see that come out. It doesn't bother me. I mean, at the end of the day, it's been rumored forever that Ottawa was going to go into the CFA or whatever the heck they're calling
CPL.
That. The what?
CPL.
CPL. That's right, Canadian Premier League, CPL. They've been talking about it, rumoring it for a while, so it comes as no surprise that they're going to, they want to do that. But at the flip side of it, there were certain requirements they have to go through, and part of that probably comes from the fact that the Canadian Premier League front offices are probably crap right now, learning all the ropes and everything. I did not assume his nationality.
Because he already knows it.
I have to assume his nationality. I know his nationality. Harry says he thinks that they play USL or sit at least a year. I think that they play this season in USL, and that's what I'm leaning towards, is that they're going to play this season in USL, and then I think next season they won't be USL. But at the same time, it's important that we remember that soccer business is soccer business, and at the end of the day, money talks and money speaks, and Canada is going to throw the money. I mean, that's just how it is. They'll say, okay, yeah, we effed up. Here's the money to fix it, and life will go on, and, CONCACAF will eventually say, okay, yeah, we'll turn the other way and ignore the fact that you effed up. It happens. But it's just...
I think at the end... I think without even throwing some money in any direction, I think CONCACAF will come to its senses and say, you know what, that's fine. You kind of broke the rules. You're kind of like new to this still anyway, so we'll give you a free pass and we'll just give you the provisionary, and then after your season ends, you're going to have to either make the jump or break it right here. That's just my grain of salt.
So I know there's been some comments on Twitter in regards to this, saying, "Well, why aren't they doing anything with Toronto? Why aren't they doing anything with Montreal or
like
Vancouver?
I said, money talks.
And aren't these franchises under MLS's ownership technically?
Yeah, they are. I think they're a single entity, so it is MLS ownership.
So that's a key difference right there. Is that these franchises are owned by MLS, so the league owns them. There's that special circumstance that gives them that leeway to participate in the league of another country. Whereas in this case, Ottawa.
There you go.
Ottawa Fury.
Congrats.
Ottawa Fury is independently owned. They made the decision, I believe, they made the decision to come to USL from... Were they in NASL or?
Yes, they were in NASL.
Yeah, they were in NASL before. Yeah.
Yeah, so they moved to USL under their own decision. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there wasn't
they weren't forced to do it.
Yeah, and there wasn't really a Canadian league of, I guess you can say, first division. But now, it's the circumstances is this was formed, and yet they still decided to stay with the USL, because I know Edmonton moved to the CPL, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So it's interesting, and it's probably going to see, look at all the loopholes that are in this ruling, and hopefully they'll be able to fix it. But I just think that this is all made a lot more complicated due to the issues with Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver.
Well, the only reason why they're not going to do anything with TFC2 is because it's part of the TFC thing.
Mm-hmm. So so is Whitecaps too.
Well, Whitecaps too but they play in Fresno, don't they? They don't have Whitecaps 2 anymore, do they?
No, they don't.
They don't. Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
No.
That's just,
So
see. Look, I'm telling you guys, you have a way up on me on USL stuff. I have no idea what's going on with USL.
So TFC 2 is playing in League 1, so therefore that special set of circumstances that are being applied to Ottawa Fury don't apply to them because they're under the TFC branch, if you follow what I'm saying there.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore that rulement doesn't apply to them because they're playing like in the USA third tier of soccer.
Yeah, agreed.
So Harry brings up this question. He says the question comes, if they force Ottawa in, that opens the door for the MLS teams to be forced as well in the future when CPL grows.
I mean, it does. I mean, it opens the door. I mean, he's not saying that that's going to happen, but it opens the door for questions and for possibilities. And to be fair, all this has taken place before with the NHL, the OHWL, OWHL, WHL, QWHL, basically the hockey leagues in Canada versus the National Hockey League. And then you have the IHL here, the IHL and then the Canadian leagues. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the same kind of thing, and it's just
the Blue Jays with baseball. Oh wait, Canada doesn't have a baseball league, do they?
No, they don't.
Okay.
No,
That's why I used hockey. I mean, hockey's very, very easy to compare because hockey. I mean, your primaries in your primary leagues, as far as your minor leagues go, are in Canada, and that's where a lot of U.S. players end up going to play is in Canada. But then you also have the IHL here, and the U.S. junior leagues here. But even those tend to cross over into Canada at least a little bit because they're trying to get the proper players. But at the end of the day, this is gonna whatever happens, and I think it's just gonna be one of those things that you can't look too much into it at this point because MLS is never going to let Toronto 2 away, and they're not going to let they're not going to let. Yes, I said to their top. I know, Callow. I was talking about the junior leagues and the minor leagues up in Canada versus the IHL here. The CHL is all mine. I know that, dude. Come on. All right, resident Canadian, Jesus. This isn't a hockey podcast. Get out of here, yeah. Get out of here, eh? No, seriously though. I mean, it's a good comparison just because you're talking about. I mean, hundreds of teams in Canada, and the teams here in the U.S. But I think it's part of the shakeout of trying to figure out where everything falls and everyone lies and where everyone fits and that sort of thing. I think at the end of the day, what's more important, I mean, this is one team right now, but it's one team. But the ramifications are there that if it's if it goes through the way that they're trying to push it through, it's going to really, really be a big deal because it opens the door, like Harry kind of hinted at. It opens the door for worse. Callow, your ass has to leave the house long enough for me to fight you, so I ain't scared, dude. I ain't scared.
All right, so another piece of news.
So Sean's getting ready to drop the gloves.
That's what Callow just said in chat too. Good timing.
So another.
I'd get my ass kicked by Callow. He's got hockey experience, dude. He knows how to fight. I'm a soccer player, dude. You'd hit me, I'd fall flat on my ass and I'd roll around 13 times.
Okay, Neymar.
I'm not Neymar. I prefer Ronaldo. I'm just kidding.
Excuse me.
I'm just kidding.
Anyways,
true.
So,
hey, Jake. What's up, Jake?
I'm pretty sure Harry's gonna come out and say, "Oh, like Chuy Enriquez."
Oh yeah, I remember that. It was great.
Or like
no, seriously.
Rafa Castillo.
Y'all got less than 30 minutes. Y'all got less than 30 minutes. So if you got something to talk about, you better hurry up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because we're about to go Dynamo soon.
That's fine. That's fine. We'll be
well,
fine.
we can go over Dynamo right now. I got no problem.
Hold on,
we'll get there. We'll get there. Don't worry. We'll get there.
So the next piece of news that came out during the offseason was the creation of the USL Players Union. What are your thoughts on that, Ray?
It's kind of a step in the right direction, despite a player from Cincinnati getting largely messed up per se in his negotiations, whether he was allowed to play or not, and all this and back and forth. I think it's a step in the right direction for the USL to at least acknowledge such thing, because now it's gonna give a lot of these players the right to join this union or not. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the players did the right thing by coming up with such thing to look out for themselves. I don't know how it's going to affect affiliate teams or not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't know the full details of that negotiation, but it's a step in the right direction for the USL players trying to move up or trying to prolong their careers in the USL Championship.
Well, I think at the end of the day, what we're seeing a change and a shift towards similar to the minor leagues in baseball, where they have a players union, and you're seeing that shift towards, basically what I'm seeing from soccer in the U.S. and I've been saying it's coming, and I'm glad it's finally here. But you're seeing that shift where a lot of things are coming in line with a long-term vision and plan for soccer in the U.S. Some of that is developmental based, some of that is league based, some of that is tier based, some of that is actually pro-rel potentially based, and some of that is just money based and trying to grow the pot of money in U.S. soccer. And I agree with you. I think largely this is a move in the right direction. You're always going to have a few people that it affects in a negative way. But you have to look at it from the aspect of you're never going to please everyone and you're never going to suit everyone. Mm-hmm. What's the greater good here? And in the long run, you're going to protect more players and you're going to serve more players at the minor league level with this sort of setup with a players union that can help protect them and help go to bat for them. Because let's be honest, there are plenty of opportunities where a player gets suspended and they don't have any recourse really other than to hope that their team actually submits an appeal for whatever it is. And you can't really do that if you don't have a players union now. So, players have recourse now, and I think that's going to go, or at least they will. And that's going to go a long way in helping solidify USL, all three tiers, as a future landing spot for talent. Now, I'm not talking about your top tier talent, but your mid-level talent that have the opportunity to ultimately end up becoming MLS, substitutes or MLS players, even potentially starters in some cases, to be able to create a pipeline for that to happen and for them to know that they're protected and covered. Because right now, if someone gets injured in the USL and they don't, and they have an opportunity to go to MLS, let's say it was Sebastian Ibeaga, perfect example, right? If he had broken his leg with RGV and then came back and was not the same player, he's done. Same thing with Derek Luke. I mean, the guy had a great future ahead of him, jacked up his knee, came back and wasn't the same player. He's not going to ever have the opportunity to go to MLS now, whereas before he might have potentially been an MLS player. And so you have to have some sort of recourse as a player to be able to get some of that lost amount of money back in some way, shape, or form. And a players' union allows you to do that. Make sure you have health insurance and make sure that make sure you're covered. It makes sure that you're a considered an actual person, as opposed to a asset for a team, all the time. So
yeah, I know there was an article that was written for Sock Takes. I don't know if you remember that one, Ray, where they talked about players in the USL getting very low salaries, getting like the contracts expired like right at the end of the season. So you had like all off season and you had no health insurance, no money, none of that. And I feel like this is like the players union when they band together, formed their CBA with the league. I think they're going to start getting more benefits. They're going to start getting more protections, and I think it's going to benefit the kind of players that will be attracted now to USL at least Championship, because now they're offering all these protections. Maybe not at the level of MLS, but at least you're not going to be unprotected if something like an injury comes up, like you said. And I think it's a step in the right direction. Now, the biggest question that has come up, I don't personally agree with it, but the biggest question is, how is this going to affect the clubs that are not, that don't have the financial power that are right now, they're even without the players union, are losing money.
Let's forget about the teams without the financial power. Let's use that same article you talked about a player getting really low pay and whatnot. If I'm not mistaken, that is New York Red Bulls too. Whereas those players were getting paid by the hour, and thus, if a coach gave them time off, well, guess what? They weren't able to make up those hours back because they would have already lost 2 hours of, let's say, training or whatever, reconditioning and all that stuff. It's too bad that they can't make up those hours. That's where it's a step in the right direction because now they have that protection and resource. Now you take a look at a club like, I don't know, let's pick on San Antonio for a bit. Where, yes, they may be more independently because they don't get the money from, let's say, a New York City FC, but yet, how are they going to suffer from a financial standpoint, having to get all these players in a players' union to pay off those insurance bills, those injury bills, and whatnot? That's kind of like the pro against argument you have there, and even you can even toss in there Sacramento or a Louisville City, teams that operate independently, and even the Tampa Bay Rowdies that operate differently, where they don't need like anything from an MLS club like such as the Toros, where we have the Dynamo backing. Kind of like a huge balance and kind of like a huge balance maker there. You have your indies, and then you got your affiliates.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, and this is true about most players' unions and what the end result of a CBA ends up being, is that the league subsidizes those teams that can't afford to pay all of their salaries in some way, shape, or form. You come up with an actual salary cap, and you start to enforce these various different rules that provide, when you have a team that wants to spend additional money because they want to bring in better players to be the best team in the league, that money gets then filtered to the lower teams. And I think you'll see that with a CBA and with a players union, for all USL leagues, that you're going to start seeing where that money gets actually filtered to the proper places instead of it just going directly into owners' pockets. Now, how long does it take before we actually see that to fruition? Probably a few years. It's not going to be an immediate thing, but it's a start in that direction. And I think Jake made the mention too. The NWSL Players Union was formed this season by Yale Averbuch as well. And that's a huge thing as well. I mean, we're seeing on both sides of soccer right now where these movements to improve the overall quality of soccer in the country and to improve the overall conditions and playing conditions for players as well as the money they're making, that makes the U.S. a lot more of a lucrative and a lot more of a tantalizing option for players from other countries. Especially your players that are in lower, even in top tiers in some of their countries, coming over here and knowing that they're not going to just get screwed out as soon as they get here type thing. Like they know they're going to be protected. We'll see how it all shakes out, but I think it ultimately does end up being better in the long run. It's just, again, multiple years before I think we see the payoff from it, but step by step. This is a step you got to take before you can get there, so it's a step.
Got to walk before you can run.
That's for sure. We're going to do this. We're going to take a break. I'm going to let the dog out because he needs to go outside, I think, for a little bit. And so we're going to take a break, and we'll come back at, let's say, 8:23. 6 minutes, that works. 8:23. And we're going to talk some Dynamo now. We've beat the USL horse, I think, down into the grave at this point. It's time to talk a little Dynamo.
Yeah, definitely.
So, hope y'all are ready. We'll be back in just about 6 minutes.
All right.
Oh, yeah, and like Kylo said, don't forget about the spicy nudes. $5 for
No!
No, please no. Think about the children.
Uh-oh.
Tengo que hacer.
It's tissue.
take you sky.
And we're back. Real quick, if you do us a favor, if you're watching this tonight, do us a favor, like the video, share the video, subscribe to our channel, and then do us a favor and go on Insta Messenger. Go on social media and share it out with your friends and family. We'd really appreciate it. The more shares we get, the better things go. It's true, actually. It really is.
And be sure, if you guys want, this isn't mandatory, please be sure to donate and help us continue to provide coverage for the Dynamo Dash and RGV.
Each $1 tip gets you one spicy nude from
No! Gen Orange After Dark, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, you just opened a can of worms you can't get back. Jake asks, how do you think James Clarkson will do as the new Dash gaffer? We did talk about that early in the show. Feel free to listen to our segment with Hal to open the show. You'll probably need to rewind and go back to the beginning of the show for that. But we did talk about that, and just to kind of summarize for you, since you did ask, we all kind of feel like he could be okay. It could be great, really. But we need to see pieces built up around him, especially coaching and otherwise, with experience with the league or at least with the women's soccer game, preferably with the league at this point, but you never know. But I guess we'll see is kind of what things 18 plus rated. We'll see how things shake out. I think as the offseason progresses and we get closer to the actual season, I do think we're in line for some kind of news to break with the Dash in the next couple of weeks, if not next month or so, related to the coaching search and things like that for the assistant coaches and other technical staff. So definitely stay tuned to that. We'll keep our eyes and ears peeled. Our eyes and ears peeled. Ooh, that was bad. Eyes and ears peeled, and we will definitely share that information with you when we get it. With that being said, we were talking RGV. Now we're going to talk a little Dynamo. It's time to dive into the men's team for a bit. So news. We lost Eric Alexander to the MLS expansion draft for FC Cincinnati. No deal had been put in place, so we didn't get anything back other than $50K allocation. Yay.
Garber bucks.
50K is even less now than it used to be. Now 50K is about as useful as half of an international roster slot, which is pretty crappy. But it's something, which is good. And then let's see. Bob the Boozer's on. Thank you, Bob. We appreciate that, sir. I lost my train of thought because I looked at
Eric Alexander.
Eric Alexander, that's right. Okay, so in my opinion, this was good for the Dynamo for a couple of reasons. One, he was not the best center mid on the team. He was never going to be the best center mid on the team. He wasn't even the third best center mid on the team. Mm-hmm. Last season, without Cabezas next to him, he was a shell of his former self, to say the least. He just didn't look the same. He had a couple of good matches, but then he had some real howlers of matches. And so he's a player that the Dynamo probably would have been content to trade away or content to waive at the end of the season anyways. So to be able to let him go to Cincinnati and not have to pay to see him go, sure, you didn't get back as much as you'd like. You only got back the $50K allocation. But on the flip side of it, you didn't have to worry about anybody else leaving, at least from the expansion draft. So that is beneficial because we had a few players on that expansion draft unprotected list that I didn't want to lose, to say the least. Eric Bird being one of the primary ones. And here's the thing. Eric Alexander leaving means it opens a door for Eric Bird to take that spot, that backup spot, and claim and make it his. And I think last season he started to do that anyways. But if he can continue to improve and progress in the same way that he has been the last couple of seasons in that role, first with RGV and now with the Dynamo, I think he can become a player that is a long-term sub-off-the-bench type player at center mid, potentially even a starter in the next 2 to 3 seasons next to Cabezas and behind whomever is the attacking mid and or if they get another center mid. Which
my biggest question with that claim that you just made is, will the Dynamo fans and or media have enough patience on these RGV guys like Eric Bird, Kevin? You see it right now with Kevin Garcia, where any little thing that he does, and they're bashing him, saying, "Oh, like he's no good, he's not ready, we don't want him," things like that.
Oh, anonymous. Oh, snap.
Ooh.
420. Oh, that's funny.
Thank you, anonymous.
I don't know who that was, but respect for the amount there. Pretty great. By the way, that's for spicy nudes that just go out on Twitter because it was anonymous. So that's how that works, right? That's how that works.
Seems legit.
Oh,
we actually have it. We have a message.
Oh, snap. Let's continue. Let's not linger on this.
Go.
I'm glad it disappeared because I don't want you to see that number. You might have a heart attack. Thank you, Blues fan. By the way, huge props for that. Man, I'm actually like almost speechless at this point. So here's the thing, right? So we were talking to Eric Alexander. You were going to say something, and then that came in, and it derailed your thought.
No, I was saying like, how much patience do the Dynamo fans and media have towards these RGVFC guys? Because it feels like they look for any little thing to say that they don't deserve to be with the Dynamo.
So I think it depends on which fans you're talking about, right? We've made the clarity that there are kind of two sections of fans, and I'm not saying that one is better than the other or one should be targeted over the other. I'm just saying it exists. There's two types of fans. You have your kind of casual fan, then you have your hardcore diehard fan. I think your diehard fans are going to be the ones that are going to be a little bit more likely to kind of wait for a guy to develop a little bit, and I think Bird benefits from the fact that we have a player capable of playing alongside Cabezas well enough to be, to have a good enough center midfield that I'm not worried about it. But on the flip side of it, I'm sorry, I got to stop reading chat while I'm talking. On the flip side of it, when you look at the casual fan, I think those are going to be the fans that aren't willing to give the lead, aren't willing to give a lot of lead time on the leash. They're going to give a couple of feet type thing. They're not going to give a lot of opportunity for a player to prove that he can improve with the club. And it's unfortunate because I think if you look at other clubs like in Atlanta, New York, Seattle, even Seattle I think is probably actually Seattle this season was quite a bit of this as well, where they're playing a lot of their younger players more and more and more. Kind of give them a couple of opportunities to show what they have, and then if they're successful in showing what they have, you keep playing them. Even though they may not be as good talent-wise as one or two other players on your bench, just starting them to give them that opportunity. I think a lot of that comes down to Wilmer. We saw it with Coyle. Coyle wasn't willing to do it. Kinnear wasn't willing to do it. They very rarely gave young guys opportunities, and Wilmer has done it, but he's done it kind of in weird ways where he plays those players in matches where they're not playing with the starters. They're playing in those matches where we have 3 matches in 8 days, and the match they play in, it's like we're putting out our B squad. On the flip side of that, however, we've seen when Wilmer's done that, more often than not, we've actually had a really good showing from those players. So, and that's really the first time he's been able to do that, because the season before this, we really didn't have the depth to play those types of players. Yes. So if that depth is there going into this season, and I do have reason to believe it will, then there's no reason that we're not going to see more of that, where we see more players like Memo get minutes. We see more players like Eric Bird get minutes. We see more players like Connor Donovan, not with us anymore, get minutes. We see players like, I'm trying to think of somebody else that I could add to this list at this point. I would say Arturo, but he's gone because he's not very good.
Carlos Small, maybe?
No, because I don't think they want to pull him up yet. I think they want to give him another season or two with RGV, and I know that just breaks y'all's heart to hear. Just cry me a river. That's as happy as I've seen Edson when we're talking Dynamo RGV stuff. I got to stop looking at chat. It's not time to look for chat. But it's at the end of the day, what I'm trying to get to, and what's important to remember, because I say that a lot, what's important to remember is that we're going to see more of those players get those opportunities. And so, I said during the Down in the Valley segment today that, what I understand is we're probably likely not to see any RGV players called up. I still think that's true. But I think what we see is that transition become more solidified. And players that have already been called up, your Eric Bird type, for instance, specifically Eric Bird, are going to get more and more minutes as the season wear on. And I think that's just to see if a player like an Eric Bird, who has the talent to be a mid-level MLS player, if they can improve throughout an entire season. That's not to say he's going to start an entire season, but at least a few matches here and there to kind of get him into the picture. Aldo Quintanilla, definitely not happening. I just strong feeling based on how that season ended last year in our RGV that he needs some more seasoning, and he needs some more professional toughness to him.
Yeah,
is the best way to put it. But there are other players that I do think have the possibility to potentially get called up at some point, just not next season. Like you said, Carlos Small is one of them. I think Chewy is one of them as well. And I do think that Kyle Adams eventually could get a call up. I think he's a good enough center back. He just has some areas to improve overall, and I think he could be a very good backup center back in the league, even better than a Kevin Garcia. As a backup center back long term. I think that Kyle. Sorry, I had to think there for a second. I was like Kevin. No, it's not Kevin. It's Kyle. Kyle. I think Kyle has the right build for this generation of MLS center backs, which is a little bit more pacey. Kevin's strong suit is definitely not his pace. Whereas I think you look at Kyle, he's got pace to him. He has pace to him. He's able to recover very quickly. I think one of the things that they want to work on with him, though, is his communication and seeing that improve. And I think if he can improve that this season with RGV, then he has a huge opportunity in 2020 with the Dynamo. And potentially at the end of 2019. I mean, once RGV sign a couple players at the midseason, I mean, at that point, there's a couple of slots that open up real quick, and especially midseason in MLS too. I mean, at that point, you're trying to bring in one or two more players as well. So, but I don't even remember what the hell I was talking about. That was the weirdest segment in the world.
What are your thoughts, Ray?
Well, I mean, not to disagree with Sean or anything like that, but I just feel like if the Dynamo can keep the Toros roster at bare minimum with no call-ups or anything, I think the Dynamo should be fine without using any RGV players unless there's another injury-marred season. Then that's where I could see a little bit of the havoc happening per se. But now that the Dynamo have two tournaments to look forward to, the CONCACAF Champions League and the MLS, I think they're going to have to tap in just a wee bit into that pool of players that they have at their disposal and maybe get those guys some international seasoning. That's just my take, because I know that their first Champions League game is going to be away to the Guatemalan side, and that's going to be no easy task. Going on the road, hostile environment, and having to play in those difficult circumstances.
I'm sure Pablo Aguilar would enjoy playing Guatemala.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind.
And as I said too, I mean, you're going to have two or three more additional, international level players coming into RGV. And
he says it with such confidence. That's making me happy.
I mean, you know me though. I never waver when I know something is right. I just don't. But when you have those players coming in, you have to think about the long-term aspect, right? That means that you have three players on the roster currently that are going to become backups and or potentially get moved up as a result of that. That doesn't mean those players are ready. It just means that a decision has to be made, because you can't add three players and then not do something with three of those players that you had before. Mm-hmm. Now, Kai Green's left, so that's one player, and you've had a couple that have been shown the door. But at the same time, you still have to figure it out. And whatever that may mean for RGV, for the RGV roster, and for RGV in general, I think is going to be interesting to see. And then Jeff brings up the point, too, about McHugh. We know that McHugh is going to be a player the Dynamo signed him to a homegrown contract, so he's got to develop somewhere. That leaves two opportunities, really, for him to develop right now. That's either he develops with, I guess three. He could develop with a college team, because he's that age now. He could develop with the Brazos Valley Cavalry. Cavalry. Thank you. Or he could develop with RGV. I think he's already at the RGV level. Maybe not the top end of the roster, but he's probably a middle of the roster player right now, and good enough to compete with him. Now, does he have that consistency? And it's funny I say that because that's the one thing that RGV players in general don't have to begin with, because they're young players. And so if he can bring that consistency to RGV, then I think that allows the other players around him to grow in the same way. You know, right? That consistency breeds consistency. Mm-hmm. And if you can create a culture of consistency, I think that it doesn't stop with just McHugh. That progresses to everybody else. We got to see what's going to take place with that. But I do think McHugh ends up with RGV. I think he's good enough to be there. That's for sure. And by the way, I'm working to get Paul back on, Paul Holliker, from the director of the Dynamo Academy right now, to get back on, come on the show sometime in January or February to talk Academy and the 2019 seasons and everything else, because that dude has so much wisdom. He's incredible. Well, and you know, and he said it best, and I want to use this because I think it's fantastic. But he's creating a culture of partnering and development, meaning it's not just about being a Dynamo Academy player. It's about the entire life of that player. It's about the entire, you know, professional life of that player. It's a career. It's not just a job. It's a career, and treating it like a career, which means you're talking whole health. You're talking, you're talking your education. You're talking your time on the pitch, time off the pitch. You know, all that kind of stuff. Dynamo Talk ends in another 30-minute RGV rabbit hole. I'm sorry. That's it's important though, because it's a huge part of what the Dynamo want to do, which is to develop players kind of through the system and through the process. And you know, the more we see of that, I think McHugh is the next step in that. The more we see of that, I think the more you're going to find more and more of that happening. And that means we're going to see more MLS level Dynamo Academy prospects. And that's only a good thing for this team, the way we're built and the way we're going to keep building. Ray, did you have something, or did I miss you?
Well, I just wanted to ask you, maybe this might not spur into another Toros Dynamo conversation, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on the partnership or affiliation with the Laredo Heat of the NPSL. What do you make of that, real quick? I mean, you're talking about development of these players and whatnot.
I think it's just to try to extend the reach. You're always going to have your one or two players that are good enough to at least have an opportunity somewhere. And if you can't reach them because you don't have reach into where they are, regionally speaking, you're going to have a hard time. And I think that's been one of the struggles of the Dynamo in general in terms of their academy system, is that it's been very locally, regionally based. And if you're not extending beyond your local, you look at the Dallas Texans, for instance, the FC Dallas kind of whole development system. They're pulling in players across the country. They're pulling in players across Texas, and we're lucky if we pull players in from Houston. You know, and it's just a different approach. It's based on the approach that we want the best players that are going to fit our system, but also be the best players. We don't necessarily want just the best local players, and that's really hugely important. It is a shift in mindset because you're talking about, it is going to lower a little bit of opportunities for local players in that they're not going to get the same opportunities they would have had before.
But now they'll have to fight for it.
But they're going to have to fight for it. It increases the competition across the board. And I think that's traditionally why we've seen FC Dallas's development system be so strong, is because they've always had that competition from day one. Whereas, I feel like just in general, in terms of the Dynamo Academy, it's not a knock on James Clarkson at all. It was just the approach that they had at the time. It was so local because they wanted to embrace the kind of soccer culture here in Houston that they tend to miss out on prospects in other areas that are even close to here, such as Bear Creek and other areas just outside of Houston. So anyways, I that's important, and I'm glad you asked that, Ray. So thank you. I appreciate that, sir.
And so, yeah, because you were talking about, okay, maybe we could send them to Brazos Valley. And I'm like, wait a second. Didn't they sign some affiliation with the Laredo Heat, who basically ran the table in the southwest region of the NPSL? It just came to mind as to how good that Laredo Heat team was, because there's another team here in the region where the Brownsville Coyotes competed, made the playoffs, but they got ousted rather quickly. And that's why I was talking, bringing in the Laredo Heat, because maybe that could be another avenue of development for that player.
Just to kind of add a little bit to this partnership is actually between the Heat Youth Soccer Club and the Youth Academy. This isn't with the first teams. It's just with the youth academies.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I thought it was also with the first team, but no, it's just the youth academies that are partnered.
Yep. And like I said, it's this partnership and the partnerships that the Academy and the Dynamo have been building, they're about increasing their reach into regions that they have not had reach into before. It's about growing the Academy regional, footprint, if you will. And so it's a long term, it's going to be a great thing. In the short term, I don't know how much real impact it's going to have. I think it's a overtime type thing. But again, a lot of what we're seeing right now is about long-term planning for the Dynamo and not short-term planning. Why is that important, though, as a Dynamo fan to see? Why is it important for us to be patient? Well, number one, when you see that means the Dynamo have zero plans to leave this city. Number one. Number two, it means that they also understand that their consistent approach that they've taken prior to really the last couple of seasons, has not worked the way they expected it to. It hasn't yielded the results that they've wanted. And it also means that there's understanding that they need to change because MLS and the way that MLS is going to grow continues to change. You're going to have two types of teams, and I've said it before. You're going to have your teams that spend a lot of money and bring in really top-level players and then try to figure out how to make them gel with their younger players. And then you're going to have teams that build a system that younger players, kind of grow into over time, that are going to keep those young players around and continue to develop the young players, but that they're going to be able to have those young players for years on end, and that it's going to be kind of this chemistry thing that you're going to see you're going to see teams with players that play well above what people expect because they're playing in a system they're comfortable with, and they're playing in a style that they already know how to play in.
So like the Red Bulls and the Union.
Yeah, very, very similar to that. Yes, pulling in a lot of academy players and a lot of prospects because you want to see those players grow into something. And you're not always going to hit on every one of them, but if you're hitting on roughly 25% of them, that's 1 in every 4. That means that when you have you have 8 to 12 graduating each year out of your top level of your academy. That means you have 2 to 3 players every season coming from your academy into your development system to grow. And if you're doing that every season, that means you're talking 6 players in 2 years. That means you're talking 9 players in 3, 12 players in 4. That number grows and it continues to grow. And that's if I could have just 3 players right now from the academy that grow into something even close to MLS, even if they were just RGV players at this point, I would be content with that. Because at least it's showing that the academy system is growing. And I think that Paul's biggest thing that he's trying to push for is by partnering in development, he's trying to partner with other communities that we haven't reached out to in the past, regionally speaking, because he understands that there are huge opportunities with some of the talent that's there that we've ignored because we just haven't had the proper connections and proper contacts to get into those regions. And maybe the approach was just different before. I don't know. But I'm really excited to have Paul on board as director of the Dynamo Academy because what he's done so far has been phenomenal. And you can see it in just the approach and how other non-Dynamo entities how much more seriously they take the Dynamo Academy now than they did before. We need to cut to break soon, just so you know.
Yeah, so we can talk MLS playoff format. Whoop-de-doo.
All right, guys. So we're going to go on a quick little break, but don't go away just yet. Don't forget, if you guys have not liked this video, go ahead and give this video a like, share it with your friends, share it with your family, let them know that Generation Orange exists. Yes, Ray?
I'm pretty sure that Sean has some spicy minions around there.
I don't have anybody wearing yellow. I don't have anybody wearing blue overalls that are painted yellow. No, I got no minions up in here.
But yeah, be sure to like, share, let people know about Generation Orange. Whenever we do get back into a role, once the season starts back up, it will be every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on the Down in the Valley channel, unless something changes from here then on. But we will let you know if anything like that does happen. But in the meantime, we're going to go on a quick little break. We will be right back.
is always on my mind. I'm sorry, yeah, that's all we got. We've loaded guns, nowhere to run. We'll take it. And the color fades, and the pain erased. We'll make
And we're back. This is Generation Orange, a Houston internet soccer show and podcast. We are your hosts, Sean Ringross and
Edson Ochoa.
And also we have Down in the Valley co-host, Ray
Silva.
Actually, it's Ray. Oh, Ray is back. I was about to say, is Ray even back? We were talking Dynamo beforehand. Kappas is with Katie and played with it. Yeah, I know. Thanks, Thanks, Gabe, for tossing that out there.
Ouch.
I just quickly skimmed the name and I regret it in a heartbeat. Okay, so interesting tidbit about the RGVFC Academy. In year 1, they had 120 kids try out. Year 2, they had 610 kids try out. What do you guys think about that? That's a very, very telling stat overall. And I'm curious your take, especially as guys from the Valley, what your take, both you, Ray and Edson, what your take is on that, and what you think that really signifies and means for the Valley.
I think it's a step in the right direction. I think it's pretty much shown that at least, even though it might not be completely reflected on game attendance, that at least the team, the organization, RGVFC, is making an impact on the youth of the Valley. That that it's become kind of like a household name for soccer, and that they're willing to go out there and try out, to enter the academy. And I mean, we've already seen, one success so far with Brandon Morales being signed to the RGVFC first team. So if we start seeing a lot more of those success stories with the academy, you're going to have a lot more people, not only from the Rio Grande Valley, but also from northern Mexico, from Reynosa, from Matamoros, from Monterrey, even, come up over here and try out for RGVFC Academy, because you never know, they might become good enough that in the end they might become future Dynamo stars.
Absolutely.
For players.
And it's important because the Valley is a hugely important soccer hotbed. And a lot of those kids that are there, their parents want them to go to the Liga MX academies, especially if they're good. And, if the Dynamo can find, and if RGV can find an inroad there, I think they can poach some of those that are going to, would normally go off to Liga MX clubs. And I think that makes a huge difference, because if you get a player with the talent level of a Liga MX talent level and you can develop them here, it's going to be hard to compete, against a team that's got 3 or 4 of those types of players within MLS or even just RGV.
Now, I know that the RGVFC Academy has been for most of their divisions have been relatively successful in the tournaments that they have been attending and participating in. I know they did have a hard time at the Rayados Cup, but that's because you had all these Liga MX academies come in and also be competing.
These academies that have been established for 50, 60, 70 years, have been developing players for easily that long. It's hard to compete when you've only been doing it for 5 to 10 years. Type of thing. So
exactly,
completely understand that. Ray, what's your take on it?
Well, just to try to elaborate what Edson said there, I mean, I guess from a year 1 to year 2 kind of perspective, when the franchise was originally announced, people were, it's not that they didn't have any skepticism, but in the year 2, year 3, I think the brand just started snowballing. And once they found out that, hey, we're going to have youth recreational leagues, and maybe we're going to have teams within your kid's age level, and then that kind of like sprung up to just motivate these kids to get on out, try soccer, and let's get the ball rolling. And that's what has happened down here, is that it's probably taken away some of the South Texas Dynamo Academy, which is ran by Middlesbrough club legend Gary Hamilton here in McAllen.
Yeah, that's.
You can laugh at that, Sean, but it is.
I know it's true. That's why I'm laughing at it, because I know it's true. It's one of those things. It makes me laugh.
It's just one of those things that, and and Gary's good peeps, by the way, and it's just one of those things where, they practice in indie practice field right next to HEB Park, so it's kind of like a plus type of thing where these kids get adapted to the professional environment right away, and it's just by building these recreational leagues with the Toros, it's just something else that these kids get a little bit more exposure to. Whereas, they may just play regionally, but with the Toros, there's just that much more opportunity to move up and try to expose themselves to a bigger brand of soccer.
Absolutely. Cisco says, for those who haven't seen HEB Park in the area around it, it is quote-unquote top-notch. And it is. I haven't visited. I need to, but it is apparently, from what I understand, really nice.
It's one of the nicest. At its time, it was the nicest in USL.
And somewhere along the way, there is a bus printed under Sean Ringrose's name in a bus station in Houston to travel down to McAllen, Texas.
I'm not taking a bus, bro. I'm gonna drive. If I'm coming down there, I'm driving. I want to be able to get out and about and go hang out and actually enjoy my time and not have to rely on other people to drive me around to and from. That ain't happening. And he makes enough trips back that I'm pretty sure I can hitch a ride and spend a weekend down there or something. So we'll figure it out. I'm definitely coming down this season some point. I just got to figure out when. There's way too much between now and then to figure out. I gotta just make it to January 1 at this point.
We all are, believe me.
Jake says he loves how HEB Park looks. It looks like a mini version of BBVA. I think in some.
It's actually a mini version of Avaya Stadium. Actually.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like it. And to be fair, BBVA kind of has some of that same feel, but a little different. Cisco says specifically the parks and fields around are just amazing, and that's good because that's what needs to happen, and not just there, but anywhere the Dynamo are putting money into building up their academies or their affiliates in various areas. They need to put the money into the parks around that area and the fields around that area because it makes such a huge difference. It provides a place of pride for the people that live there, but it also provides a place that they can go to. And that kids can congregate, and it gives it's a daily reminder for the kids in that area that this is what you could be doing. Legitimately, if you're good enough and you work hard enough, this is what you could be doing for the rest of your life. And soccer's a hell of a way to spend the rest of your life. So Sergio asked a little ways up with what players from the
the re-entry.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. Yeah, what players from the re-entry draft would you like to see most with the Dynamo? There's one player in particular that I would like to see. However, with that being said, there's actually two. However, with that being said, I'm not sure what his level of capability is at this point in his career. And that player is Tommy McNamara. I think he's the perfect fit for Wilmer's system and for Wilmer's style. He'd be the... Go ahead.
Was he a former Red Bull Academy, if I'm not mistaken?
I'm not sure about that, but he was a former Chivas USA player.
Yeah, I may have heard that name somewhere.
Yeah, he might have played for New York. I don't know. He played for New York City last year, NYCFC.
Yes, there you go, NYCFC, yes.
And he's a winger / midfielder, so again, it's just the right type of player for the system. Hey, you finally have a freaking backup for our wingers besides Memo.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a veteran player that could help Memo grow even more than he has already, and also be a veteran presence that's good enough to be very similar to Papa Sanchez was. But with that being said, between him and everybody else on this list, I'm kind of like, okay, that'd be cool, but I'm not high on them necessarily. Mm-hmm. The only other player I'd be remotely there's two now that I see one other one that I would be interested in. Keep scrolling because maybe I'll see a fourth one. No. Okay, cool. So there's three players that I would consider. Actually, there's four. I do see one more. So there's Carlos Rivas because that guy has jets that don't quit. That guy's got speed to burn. He's kind of like Dominic Oduro, but on crack. The guy's fast. He scares me when I watch him run. And he would do well on the pitch here in Houston. There's Donnie Toya, who I've watched for years, who has become a very good player. Not a great player, but a very good player. And is one of those hardworking players that will not quit when he's playing. He's one of those really scrappy guys. And everybody needs one of those on the team, right? Mm-hmm. And then finally, the last player, the fourth player, and again, we can only take two, so I'm just extra names because I have extra opportunities. The last player would actually be, and no, it's not David Villa, because I'm sure other people are like, what about David? No, it's not David Villa, because I don't want Villa. I really don't. I don't want a flopper on my hands. I already have enough with Elise and Kyoto. I don't need another one, damn it. The final one would be Giles Barnes, because I think he would be another perfect winger / center midfielder / attacking player that could be a great backup, but it could also be another potential kind of one of those players that can fill the role of a player who is still kind of at that point of prime in his career. And here's the thing. Don't judge him based on his time in Colorado and his time elsewhere. His time in Colorado was terrible because he's got asthma. And I said it when he moved there that asthma plus Colorado Denver altitude is just it's a disaster waiting to happen, and it's what he struggled with. He looked good. He had a lot of really good moments with the club. Not a lot of goal scoring, but you're not expecting that necessarily from a guy who's going to be a backup. What you're looking for is you're looking for veteran presence. You're looking for a guy with experience who can help lead a team, and you're looking for a guy that has that kind of personality that can help mesh. And let's be real, he would mesh immediately with Elise and Kyoto because of their personalities. They're all very similar in that style. Just imagine Giles coming in for Kyoto, giving Kyoto a break, or coming in for Elise and giving Elise a break. It would be a good fit in my opinion. Giles is training here in Houston. Most people don't know that, but I do. Giles is training here in Houston, so we'll see what comes of that. It may just be that he's working out here in Houston because he knows people here, which is cool. But I think he would be a great fit here. I still lean towards I'd rather Tommy Mack personally, but Giles I think would be a great fit, and I'd be totally okay if we took him. With that being said, we're going to pass in the first round, and we'll take somebody in the second round. I don't know who we're going to take. I know they've got a couple of options they want. We'll see who they take, but we are going to take somebody in the second round. That's my word of the day. Somebody in the second round of the re-entry draft. And as Cisco says, he's already got a home here too, so it makes it easy for him to come to be here because they don't have to worry about all the different ins and outs. And doesn't he have a green card now, Cisco?
So my question is, looking at this
list,
this list, It says stage 1, so this is just for round 1. These players are going to be available only in round 1? Or?
Scroll up and you'll see something here in a second. So stage 2, it doesn't say that there, but stage 2, there are a few extra players that will be available.
Okay.
We're talking like 10 to 12 at most. And it's not going to be players that anybody's going to take. They're going to be, they're just not going to be great players. Since they get the last pick in the re-entry draft, that's awesome. I mean, we got 8th pick, so I mean, there's plenty of options there. It is traditional for most teams to pass in the first round because if you take a player in the first round, you are taking them at their existing salary. You don't get a chance to renegotiate their salary. If you take them in the second round, you're able to renegotiate their salary before they sign with your club.
Oh, I get it.
And also of note, and it's important to note that a former Dynamo / RGV player, Callie Brown, is also a member of the re-entry draft this year.
Yeah, he didn't have a good time with Seattle Sounders.
No, and to be fair, we're not looking at goalkeepers. If we were, Joe Bendick would be really high on my list. To be totally honest, he's a fantastic keeper.
Also Andre Rawls, who used to play with Orange County SC.
Yeah,
he was a good keeper. But I'm just pointing that out.
Well, I mean, Wara is on there too. I don't remember Wara's first name. Danny Wara, something like that. He's down towards the bottom. Tony Wara.
Travis
Wara. I know it started with T. Travis Wara is on there as well. Goalkeeper used to play for. He played for DC United. That's who he played for. Joshua Yarrow's on there. Ooh, that's interesting. I'm surprised they declined his contract. But at the end of the day, like I said, I mean, there's options. There's opportunities, and so it's it's just one of the...
Giles Cisco.
No, Cisco's not asking about who. He's asking about somebody else. Somebody that I said. He may not have known one of the players we mentioned on there. I don't know. Let us know which player we were talking about that you mentioned who on. We were looking at the list, so we didn't have the chat up at the time. All right, so we made it to 906 on just the re-entry draft alone, which is awesome. So let's talk about this. Since we're talking re-entry draft, I have a list here of a few transfer moves, or not transfer moves, a few moves that were made by MLS clubs this past week. In particular, and they were moves that honestly shocked me just a little bit. Okay, quite a bit. And specifically, these are moves that were FC Cincy based. So first, we talked about this. They took Eric Alexander in the.
Yeah, but
does Giles Barnes have a green card? Eric Alexander was taken in the Cincy draft. They then traded for Victor Ulloa from FCD. Kendall Waston from Vancouver, Greg Garza from Atlanta. Here's why that's important. Those are all 3 starting players for them. And Kendall Waston and Greg Garza, Greg could theoretically play center back, but they also took Nadam in the draft. You partnered Nadam next to Waston? Oh, that's a scary center back pairing. That's I don't want to play them now. Just it's like they're focusing on their defense and they've got Adi, which I think was a great move by them. And they picked up a couple of good attackers, too, with trades that are going to make them a very good attack as well. But they have nobody feeding anybody the ball. So there's no pivot in the middle, in my opinion. It's going to be interesting. I mean, Eric Alexander, I guess, is going to be that for them, but he's not good enough to be that by himself. But like I said, I mean, just thinking of Kendall Waston next to Nadam, that's a pairing that really is impressive. Did they catch Alvis Powell? Did they trade for Alvis Powell? I didn't think they traded for him. Are you talking about he's available in the MLS re-entry draft? I don't want Powell. I don't. I think that's a position we don't need to spend more money on. Really, we don't need to spend more money on that position. Please. So, yeah, I just wanted to go over those moves. And then also, I guess while we're talking about it, because there's not really a lot to talk about with that in particular, but I just wanted to talk about that and just bring it up so I could voice my opinion. But there's also been a couple of rumors that are very close to being to fruition that make me smile for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have the rumor that now LA Galaxy are likely to get Schelotto. And that makes my heart absolutely swell with pride because it means Atlanta's not getting Schelotto. And right now, my hatred for Atlanta outranks my hatred for LA Galaxy.
Wow.
And we also found out, we knew that Tata was leaving, but we also found out that Caleb Porter is very close to becoming the since he traded for Alvis Powell.
Holy crap. It's still a rumor right now.
Oh, okay. That it hasn't been confirmed. Mm-hmm. Holy crap, that backline is freaking monstrous. Dude, I'm going to give credit to where credit's due since he's building a hell of a team. At least a hell of a starting 11.
Yeah,
and they've got
and they're probably going to be choking in the playoffs like they always do.
That's still better than the Dynamo did last season.
Well, I mean,
I'm just throwing it out there. Careful what you chew on, bro, because sometimes you find something you don't want to chew on.
You know what they say.
No, I don't. What do they say?
Well, they say you can't count your chickens while they haven't hatched or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Chickens before they hatched.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you're right. I don't ever badmouth a team until the season is at least 3/4 of the way over, and I know that team's not going to make the playoffs because it makes us look really bad when they make the playoffs, and we're sitting on the outside looking in.
Right.
He says he believes the Cincy trade for Alvis Powell is confirmed, just not announced yet.
Oh, okay.
That's because I think there's a roster freeze now again until a certain point right before the draft or something like that. Mm-hmm. Gabe says it's a rumor. One of them is right. One of them is wrong. I guess we'll find out soon. But the final one was Caleb Porter to Columbus Crew. That one caught me off guard, and here's why. Caleb Porter is a hell of a coach. Has proven it, or proved it with Portland. He can build a club. He can build a team. He can build them with young players. He's good at developing young players. He's going to a team with quite a few young players that fit the type of play he wants to play. Cisco says Giles does have a green card. So that's another player that's not an international player that plays well enough to be a backup that you don't have to spend an international slot on. That makes him extremely valuable. His contract last season was $300,000. I'd pay $200,000 for him, $250 in a heartbeat for Giles, without a doubt at all. Actually, I'd pay that amount because he'd be worth it. But the reason why all of those coaching moves make me happy, like I said, is because Atlanta can't get them. And with them losing Tata Martino, they don't have a lot of options left. They're talking about going after Bielsa, which I have a hard time buying in that's even a remote possibility for them at this point. And it's like I feel like at this point they're just trying to find anybody they can. These are not their first or second choice now. Now are like to their third or fourth choice.
Yeah.
And so it just I said it at the end of last season, and I'm going to say it again.
I think you said it before.
I've said it before that once Tata is gone, that team is going to be a shell of their former selves. Now that Greg Garza is gone off their team, and Almiron's likely to leave, as is Joseph. I mean, even with Pity coming in, it's not going to matter. You don't have enough on that team from a top-level talent standpoint to compete like they did last season. Barco's not it. Barco was terrible last season. Barco's not it. And so I struggle to see where they're going to improve from last season to this season when all teams around them are going to be improving in some way, shape, or form.
And I think you meant, I don't know if it was you, but somebody mentioned it on social media saying, like, this is the reason why, championship teams are not able to retain. But they aren't able to retain their players.
Yeah, it is because it's so hard to keep your players around because once they win a championship, they've got that exposure that they need to be able to be pulled by various teams from overseas that want to spend the money on them. And so it'd be like if the Dynamo had won something more than just Open Cup that was very visible. If the Dynamo go on a CCL run this season, Kyoto, Elise, and Morrow are gone. Mm-hmm. That's not even a question. Yeah. And Cabezas is probably gone too. And those are going to be hard to replace. And we'd be in the same exact boat. And it's just the way MLS is. It's just the way soccer is. You look at teams that do well in the Champions League that are not top-tier teams that just beat top-tier teams. What do those top-tier teams do? They loot their talent immediately. That next transfer window, they're calling and they're saying, we want every one of them. We want these specific players. And after that team usually has those players gone, they're shell of their former self. It's hard to replace those players because, with the Dynamo in particular, think about it this way, and it's true, I think, now with Atlanta. They're going to spend money. But spending money is not a guarantee that player is going to pan out. They spent $13 million on Barco, and look at what he did last season.
Yep.
So, is that $13 million well spent? I think a lot of MLS teams are looking at it going, you're not getting a return on your investment right now. And if the next 2 seasons he doesn't pan out to be anything, that's $13 million. They sunk and lost.
Yeah, you're not going to get that $13 million.
And you don't get it back. And Atlanta's not. Atlanta's a team that can afford to do that because Blank has such deep pockets. But your other clubs in MLS, they can't afford to do that. TFC could, I suppose. New York maybe could, New York FC. But most of your teams in MLS can't afford to just plunk down that kind of money on a player and have him be a bust. The Dynamo put money down on transfers, but they go cheap on salary because the players they're going after have the potential to be really, really good players, but they're not guaranteed to be really good players.
So they don't lose a lot of money.
So they don't lose the money on their investment. They get something back. Perfect example is if Mara was to leave right now, you can't say he's a really good player in MLS. He's one of the better players in MLS, but really good. He's not an elite player in MLS yet. But if he were to go this offseason, we'd probably get $2 to $3 million for him. That's more than we paid to get him. Mm-hmm. If Cabezas were to leave in the next 2 to 3 years, we paid $1.5 million to get him. He would leave on 3 to 4 at this point because your center mids that are that type of center mid that play that type of way, they're far and few between. Your Elise, when he leaves, he's going to command a shit ton of money if he can continue the pace that he's continuing on in terms of his goal scoring and his ability to assist players and improve and grow. And if he does it in 2 to 3 years, that's money that you've returned on your investment that's tenfold easily what you paid for him. And that was a player that came from Liga MX where they're overpriced. So just imagine these players like Maro that came from the Colombian League. You're paying pennies on the dollar for these these talents and players that you're developing over 5-6 years. You sell one of those players on, you're literally 100-fold making your money hand over fist because you didn't pay that much for them, and you're able to sell them on for 10 times what you paid easily or more.
Mm-hmm. It's a more sustainable business practice.
It is, and again, Atlanta can afford to do it because they've got an owner with deep pockets, but they can only afford to do that for so long. You can't afford to continue to throw $13 million year over year over year if you're not getting your investment back on it. I guarantee you, if Pity doesn't pan out for them, Arthur's gonna rethink what he's spending money on, because at that point, even if they win MLS Cup, but he struggles and Barco struggles, it's going to be hard for Arthur to go, yeah, I'm going to plunk down that money for that player because he's great. He's not going to plunk that money down because he's a businessman at the end of the day. He may love his team, but he's a businessman at the end of the day. And if he sees it's not worth the investment, he's not going to invest. So, and that's the approach of most MLS clubs. I just think it's on a smaller scale because you don't have as deep pockets across the league as you do in Atlanta or TFC.
I think the bigger issue here is that everybody's swooning over Atlanta United because we're used to seeing, like you say, a more conservative way of spending money in MLS. Then all of a sudden you got this team that's spending millions of dollars on just one player, and now they won the MLS Cup. And now everybody's like,
that's supposed to be the right approach. But the thing is they didn't spend nearly that amount between Joseph and Almiron. They approached it differently with Joseph and Almiron. That's not to say they didn't spend money. It just wasn't nearly the same amount. Barco was an absolute monstrosity of a transfer fee. Yeah. That was $13 million. That was more than the cost of both of those players.
Yes.
And yet he's nothing compared to both.
Remember, Joseph Martinez came on a loan first from Torino.
Yep.
So they tried him out first before seeing, okay, he's good for MLS. All right, now I'm going to pay the money.
Yep, we'll pay whatever you want. Yep, pretty much.
And with Barco, it's just, oh, he's available. All right, $13 million. Órale, ven pa acá.
Yep. And it's a short-term approach. It's a short-term mentality. It's we know we're not going to keep these players for more than 2 to 3 seasons. But at the end of the day, if you continue to throw that money out the window and you're just basically burning the money, are you really getting the best investment, best return on your investment? And
yeah, pretty much.
Over time, that burns a hole in your pocket. It does. Absolutely does. Because you're like, okay, well, if that player didn't pan out, maybe I need to spend a little bit more money for somebody else. Maybe I need to go get a former Premier League player that's, on that cusp of greatness, beforehand or whatever. Maybe you're going after a Rooney next, and you're going to spend $15 million on a Rooney to get him over here. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying, that's kind of the mentality you get into. Is you got to keep going. And the thing is your fans, they're going to want you to go bigger and bigger every season. They're not going to be content with they're not going to be content with whatever they bring in this season, even if they bring in Pity, which they're going to. They're not going to be content with it because they didn't spend the same amount they spent last year. They didn't bring in a Barco like they did last year type of thing. So you can type a response to him. I know you want to.
Ray? Are you there, Ray?
Yes, I am.
Okay. He went to go eat or something. Like I should be doing. I'm very hungry.
Go ahead, Ray. What do you think of that?
Well, for right now, I think Houston's method may not be the best, but Atlanta's approach may not be the best either. I guess you can kind of say that Houston right now is gambling conservative, which is fine. You may not have the big trophies and whatever, like Atlanta just got one. But I think over time, I think Houston will see some of those dividends pay off as they try to feed off their affiliate the Toros. But Atlanta, they just went blazing guns the first 2 years of operation, getting Greg Garza, getting Joseph Martinez, Almiron, and recently shelling out close to 14 mil with Barco.
Mm-hmm.
And now that they've lost Tata Martino, it's going to be interesting who they bring in to replace him and to see if Joseph Martinez and Almiron stay with the team after Tata leaves, or how everything pans out.
Yeah, I mean, just the level of coaching that Tata Martino brought to the table. I mean, it was huge. And now the fact what you're saying is that Atlanta United is going through their third, fourth, and fifth choice. That right there, that tells you that that it's going to be a significant difference of capability between what Tata brought to the table and what this new coach has to bring.
Yep.
Because yes, they may bring Marcelo Bielsa if they could. They'd have to shell out a lot of money. Number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, Marcelo Bielsa has kind of been really iffy with these last few teams that he's been coaching, and he's also been in some sort of problems with his own players, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
So that's gonna bring in a lot of problems to Atlanta United if they do decide, and if they don't, who else of that caliber is open?
Yeah,
Nobody.
there's not.
They're gonna have to. They're gonna have to pretty much set. Go ahead.
If Atlanta goes blazing guns on their next head coach, I think they might have a MLS Cup aberration that, okay, maybe that was a one-hit wonder, but I think one name that no one has talked about, and this may not even be on Atlanta's radar, and Edson, start to laugh right now, you're going to kill me, but I'm going to say Antonio Mohamed.
Oh, my God. See, I thought you were going to say Victor Manuel Vucetich, and I would have applauded with that one.
Victor Manuel Vucetich is like of a different pedigree. Why? Because, yes, has he worked with teams that have had deep pockets? Yes. But I just feel like a safer choice might be Antonio Mohamed. Why do I pick him? Because he's a guy that hasn't had that international national team level of coaching. All the coaching has been at the club level, whether in Mexico, Argentina, or just recently in Spain, where his team wasn't doing that bad. But I think Celta de Vigo pressed that panic button a little too early, and from what I heard, that I guess the pundits over there in Spain weren't happy with his style of play. So I kind of figured that Turco might want to take a venture into MLS just for a couple of seasons in Atlanta, just to test the waters there.
And I think that his style of play would really benefit Atlanta, because it's spectacular. It's a spectacular kind of play that Turco Mohamed has. With Monterrey, he used the line of five, but we had your two wing backs who would go up and attack. And Monterrey, when Mohamed was with Monterrey, during the regular season, they were pretty much one of the best teams out there. They consistently got pretty much, I guess you can say, supporter shield if you put it in MLS terms. Obviously, in playoffs, it's a completely different story. He didn't have even
with Club America in Tijuana.
Yeah, because he won the Liga MX with Club America. He defeated Tigres. I remember that.
I'm not saying because he beat Tigres, but because of his style of play. He took a small club in Tijuana and just brought him into broad daylight. Was able to win a title there too.
Yeah, definitely. That was when Tijuana had barely been promoted.
Exactly,
to the
they were barely promoted. So that's why I'm kind of saying, okay, maybe if they get a bit more conservative in their coaching search, maybe that would be my dark horse candidate for Atlanta.
See, that's just it. I can't see Atlanta going that route because I think they want a high-name, high-visibility coach because they understand that they have to appease their fans right now. Because if Tata, you think about it, Tata leaving, they got to replace him with somebody good.
Yeah, I think it's to a point where right now the Atlanta fans are spoiled.
They are, and just like Dynamo fans were the first 2 seasons, right?
Or the Toros in their first year.
It was worse for the Dynamo, trust me.
I know.
But it's the same type of thing where early success.
You guys had all of her luck.
Yeah, and the thing was early, and Dom Kinnear too, along with that, in a team that was ready-made to win championships. But the thing is you come out of that era, you come out of that time, and you have to now you don't have the luxury of making mistakes because now your fans expect everything is going to be great. Mm-hmm. That means your signings are all going to pan out. That means your young players are going to come true every time. That means your coach is always going to be the best coach who's available.
You're going to steamroll through,
et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, you're gonna excel in CCL because nobody can touch you. When in reality, your best time was probably already gone. Look at TFC and what happened with them after they won MLS Cup. They had two years of running at it, but after that and after they started, they didn't even shuffle that many players around. But you just look at how that took its toll on that team, having to play CCL twice and everything else. They struggled hard last season to the point that they didn't make the playoffs. And this was a team that won MLS Cup the year before. I'm not saying Atlanta's going to fall quite that hard, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did because, again, you bring in a new coach, that's a major change for a club and for a team. Even if they try to play the same way, it doesn't have the same effect. So I want to read off some of the things that Blues was saying. He said, who said Marcelo Bielsa would come to Atlanta? That man would refuse that team so damn fast. His expectations on how he wants his team to play and how he's so demanding even up to the field itself would not lend himself more than for show.
Oh, yeah, he would not want to play in artificial turf.
No, he would throw a hizzy fit. And so I just don't – that's why when I saw it come out, I was like, yeah, whatever. It's not happening. He, like Blue said, he has a tactical genius, but also the absolute maddest manager to ever try to rein in. I agree, and I don't. Boca's good, but I don't think he's that good. Also, Cisco says with TFC's spending, do y'all think fans are asking to spend more? And he says, and same goes for LAG. I do. I think that fans are looking at the amount that both those teams spent last season or the last couple of seasons, and they're going, spend more, put more money into it because Atlanta put more money into it and it worked for them. In reality, what won the championship this season for Atlanta was not the money that they put into those specific players, but it was the young players that they brought in that made the difference for them. You look at your players throughout the season, your Carlton, who didn't play in the final, but still your Carlton during the playoffs was a fantastic player. Who's there outside? Villalba was another good player for them. Nagby, he was a player. He was a player. I'm trying to think. Gressel. Gressel was holy crap. Gressel was level of amazing. But that's the thing. At the end of the day, if you don't have those depth players, if you don't have those young players, then the best talent's not going to matter. You can't win 2v12 or 2v11. Mm-hmm. You can't. And we've seen it. We've seen it in MLS repeatedly, and we'll continue to see it. It's a soccer truth. You cannot win 2v11. Cisco said, remember that bit from Boswell on Atlanta and their training regimen? Yeah, that's a really good point to call out. Boz had mentioned on Twitter that when he came into the team, they trained on passing out of the back every day. And the thing that was a Tata thing. That wasn't that's not an MLS thing. MLS, the Players Union specifically says that you can only train 4 times a week. You have to take 3 days off during the week. And those days could be for recovery, but they can't be for training. And they were training every day, even on game day. And Boz had said that, and he said they were they got violations 3 different times that went to investigation type stuff, and nothing happened. But the fact that they got to that point means it's a big deal. And so, does the next manager do it to that extreme? Does he push it to that level? I don't think he can or he will. Here's the thing. If they don't bring in a big name, those big name players, any of them that stay, your Barco is a good example of that, his ego and attitude are going to be, I could run this team. It's my team. You paid me the money. I'm telling you how I'm going to play. Yes. I don't care what your coach says. I don't care how good your coach is. He's not better than what I am because you paid me more money than you paid him. Yeah. And so you have to manage those egos. And again, all of these things add up to what I'm telling you, and I'm telling you this now. Atlanta is going to be a complete shell of their former selves. That doesn't mean they're not going to win games. It doesn't mean they're not going to have a decent team. It just means they're not going to be the best team in the league by a long shot. You have teams that are built to be continuously good year over year, and I think you have teams right now that are starting to become really, really good. I think one team to look out for next season that's going to be an interesting team to watch, San Jose. Almeida, he's got an absolute great team there with good talent that has an opportunity to become something really, really special.
And here's something about Almeida, and I'm sure Ray is going to agree with me. The way he motivates his players,
you don't see it anywhere else.
Phenomenal.
He's a Jurgen Klopp. He is absolutely a Jurgen Klopp, just at a smaller level, if you will, smaller division, but not by much.
Am I lying, Ray?
No, you're not. And here's another so-called big-name manager that may not want to come to MLS, but just considering that Atlanta may splash the cash, Antonio Conte.
Oh, God. Oh, hell no. That dude hated MLS when he was coaching the Italian team. It was Italy, right? Yeah, it was Italy. He didn't want to. He didn't want to bring in Giovinco.
Yes,
Giovinco was one of the best players in the world at the time, and he's like, "Nah, he's an MLS player. We only bring in high quality players from top tier leagues in the world. Get the out of here! Come on!" And then what happened to Italy? Bowed out of that freaking World Cup. That was qualifying. They didn't even qualify.
Yeah, they didn't qualify.
He couldn't even qualify with Italy. Get that.
No, they
get that crap
lost
out
in
here.
aggregate to Sweden.
And he got shown the door by Chelsea. Get the out of here. Come on. The dude isn't that great. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. He wouldn't be good in MLS, to be honest. He would absolutely hate MLS because he just wouldn't have the players that he wants. Barco wouldn't fit him at all. Oh,
yeah,
man.
and the fact that he would have to...
Okay, actually, I want to see it because I want to see him and Barco come to blows because that would legit happen. Conte would yell at him so hard, and it would be on the sideline. Everybody would see it out in pub. Oh, it'd be beautiful.
Oh, that'd be a dumpster fire waiting to happen. But here's another thing. I think a lot of these big names, these big coaches would not want to come to MLS because of all these limitations when it comes to building the roster.
And not only that, but think about it from Conte's perspective. I mean, it's not even coming to a lower league or anything like that. I mean, whatever. That's not the big deal. It's you have to come in and manage these particular egos. Barco's ego right now is out of this world. And if you don't believe me, he tried to sleep with the girlfriend of one of his teammates.
I thought he did. But anyway.
No, they didn't. I don't think they consummated the moment, if you know what I mean.
Seems.
However, with that said, I don't think we'll ever find that truth out. Well done, Ray. Well done.
Gen Orange After Dark.
But, I mean, all of that is to simply say that much like a lot of MLS clubs right now, the Dynamo are in a better position than some clubs that people view as top clubs in the league. And I think that, and I've said it before, and we've all said it before, and you guys have learned over the time as we've talked about this, that there has to be an approach where you understand that if you spend all this extra money to bring in these really high-level players, your return on that player is going to be minimal in terms of being able to sell them on after that. The Dynamo's approach is, hey, for your one player that you're bringing in for $13 million, I can bring in 5 Maros at that price. I could bring in a couple of Elises. Give me 2 Elises for 1 Barco any day of the freaking week.
Yes.
And yes, I know that's normal in England, but he struggled with that in Chelsea. I'm just saying, just throwing it out there. He struggled with that at Chelsea.
Another name that just comes to mind real quickly.
You can't get off the coaching carousel, can you?
No? Well, you guys brought it up.
I know. No, you're good, Ray. I'm just having fun. You're good.
Roberto Di Matteo.
Ooh, I don't hate that. That's the first one I haven't been like, what the hell are you smoking? I could get behind that. And I hate saying that because it's not going to happen for Atlanta because it's just not, because they're going to suck next season. That's the only way this can work out. Do you not know who that is?
Yeah, he was the guy who steered Chelsea to win that Champions League.
He was fantastic.
And then he got sacked on my birthday.
Tell me how you really feel. Tell me how you really feel.
Yeah, I mean, it was unfair for the guy, you know.
It absolutely was.
They didn't give him hardly any money to build his Chelsea roster the way he wanted to.
And then they turned around and they gave all that extra money to Conte and
no, it was
no. Who came after Matteo? It wasn't
Mourinho.
No, Mourinho. It was right before Mourinho.
Grant Abram?
Was it? I don't think it was Grant.
Yeah.
Maybe it was.
I think so.
It's been so long now, I can't remember. God, my memory's failing me.
I want to say it was Grant Abram. Anyhow, but yeah, I mean, that's
Rafael
just my
Benitez.
It was Benitez. That's right. That's who came in
that
after him.
dumpster fire.
And that's what I was saying. Yeah, but they gave Benitez all the money, and they wouldn't give Matteo any of that money. That was the annoying part about it. I remember exactly what you're talking about. Oh, it's so crazy. Anyways, sorry. We're totally talking international now, but I'm totally okay with it. It's totally on the money. It's okay. Hodgson. Atlanta's going to end up with Alan Pardew. Oh, guys, you guys are going down a dark, dark path. Oh, man. Maybe they'll get Gareth Southgate next.
Look, if Alan Pardew can repeat that little dance that he did at Crystal Palace.
I mean, he had Lukaku. It's about as much as I could say for him at Crystal Palace. No, that's the thing, right?
Watch them get Owen Coyle.
They could get Owen Coyle. Dear God. Oh, that would be glorious as well. That would be great. But at the end of the day, I want to make it clear that the approach that the Dynamo have is not a bad approach. I think there's this misunderstanding that you have to spend money in MLS to be successful. There's a lot of media types that propagate this misunderstanding. And Hal would shoot me on the spot because, I say shoot me. Hal would kick me on the spot because Hal agrees with the idea that you have to spend some money to be successful. And I look at it and I go, you don't have to. You have to spend some money, but you don't have to spend all your money. You don't have to spend $13 million on a player to be successful. The most ridiculous. I need you to explain what you mean by that, and that'd be great. Yeah, thanks, Cisco. But at the end of
the Alan Pardew or the dance or what needs to be explained.
Oh no! Francisco said that in the chat. Harden just had the most.
The Rockets are playing right now, and it's a Rocket comment.
Ouch! So I think my biggest concern with all of that is that, for example, everybody talks about Barco came in and they know the exact transfer number.
Yeah.
Whereas with most MLS teams, you have no idea how much they paid for it. The only reason you know about salaries is because it's part of the players' union list that gets published.
He had back-to-back triples. That's pretty amazing, Harden. Harden's on fire right now, is what you're telling me, Cisco. Should I turn on the game behind me? Is that what I should do? Go ahead.
Continue, just turn on the MX Championship game.
What?
Why would I want to watch that trash?
Ouch.
Yeah. Sean is not the biggest fan of Liga MX. He's actually watched a couple of games.
If I wanted to watch grown men run into each other and do nothing with a ball for 90 minutes, I would go watch rugby.
To be fair, he has watched a couple of games. Never said he enjoyed them, but he has watched them.
I've actually more than a couple. I've watched some even when you aren't here. Mostly because it's the only soccer on and there's nothing else on TV that time. But I'll watch Liga MX. It's so hard for me to get into because it's literally this. I'm trying to think how I would describe it. It's dispossession based. It's not possession based. It's dispossession based.
Yes.
It's who can get the most turnovers and turn them into chances. It's counterattacking, but it's ugly, nasty, disgusting counterattacking. Like it's not MLS flowy, fluid counterattacking. It's this just beat 'em up style of soccer, and it's not its rough nature. I don't mind rough soccer, but it's the choppiness of the matches. Mm-hmm. There's no fluidity to the matches, and the game is meant to be beautiful. It's not meant to be a slugfest. It's really not. We won by 15. Harden scored. Holy mother, that's a large number. He scored 50, half a century. That's impressive.
So going back with my.
Shut up, Ray.
So where I was going is, how much does the way that the fans think, how much is it affected by the lack of transparency with these figures? Or do you think it's more along the lines about the media playing with this lack of transparency to kind of?
I think that's it. I think it's the media trying to create storylines wherever they can create a storyline. They're trying to create opportunities where they can create opportunities. That doesn't mean that there's not opportunities for them to create based on salaries and things like that. But I do think they're taking what information they have available. So you had, when they released the MLS Players Union numbers for salaries, the big thing was the Dynamo were bottom 5 in the amount of salaries that they paid for the season. And the thing was, so were the Red Bulls. They were just above us, I think, at 22 or something like that out of the teams.
I think they were 19.
So, maybe they were 18 or 17, something like that. Yeah, right. Anyway, something like that. But the thing is you don't have to spend massive amounts of money if you have the other components of how to build a roster figured out. And by that, I mean, soccer is a team sport. It's not a single-player sport. That's why Portugal have not won a World Cup. That's why, or at least not lately. That's why Argentina have struggled lately. While sure they have really good top-level players that are the best in the world, they struggle against teams like a Germany. Maybe not so much as the last World Cup because they bowed out so freaking early. Thanks, Germany, by the way, for helping win me the pool, which didn't actually get me anything.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, Edson. No worries at all. I'm totally not bitter about that whatsoever.
Well, at least you didn't get the wooden spoon.
I wasn't going to get the wooden spoon. I didn't have a chance to get the wooden spoon. I was so damn good. Everybody else left in the dust. No, I'm just kidding. It was pretty close actually. Edson had me really worried there the first week or so. And then
you know what's funny about that? I didn't really analyze anything. I just went with my gut.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Is I look at the matchups and I go, okay, who makes sense? You know, and I'm not analyzing. I'm just like, who makes sense? And Germany destroyed so many people's brackets on that one. To be fair, Portugal won Euro 2016. Based got 8 or leading them on. I mean, yes, okay, they won the Euros in 2016. I'm not saying Portugal's a bad team. They've got better players now. But when Cristiano Ronaldo first came into their squad and was considered one of the better players, on the team, 2 World Cups ago, they were a shamble of themselves now.
So here's one thing, and I touched upon this last night in the Dynamo Discord, and you guys remember. But I brought up the example of Tigres. Tigres, the roster, the value of the roster is, if not the most expensive, one of the most expensive in North and South America.
Yeah. So let me say this real quick. Callow, I just want to give Callow a shout out. He was the only one to say Sweden was going to be that good.
Oh yes,
and they looked amazingly good, like scared me level of good talent. Because Sweden's not a traditional powerhouse, and I'm like, why are you good?
Without Zlatan.
Yeah, but that didn't. I said without Zlatan they would be better. I didn't expect them to be.
I think everybody said that, but going back to the thing is, so they're the most expensive roster, and yet you would assume that they'd win every little competition they'd be participating in. They don't. Here's another thing. Now going back with salaries.
A ustedes les queda grande la CONCACAF.
Hey, Ray, why does it always come back to Tigres with Edson?
He mentioned it. He put himself right in the forefront. I just had to dink it in.
Here's
it was a tap-in for you. You did.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but here's the thing. Go ahead.
No, he said it was a tap-in.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing with salaries. If you pay a player too much with salaries, when you want to get rid of him, you're not able to get rid of him. Yeah. Why? Because these other teams are not able to pay this player their salary, and most of them are not going to take a huge pay cut.
And not only that, but they're not going to pay for a player that isn't coming true, that isn't playing well. The reason I went is because Harden also had a 50-point triple-double. That's holy crap levels of amazing. Harden was tonight's MVP, clearly. Sorry, Ray. Cisco continues to just rub it in that the Rockets are great. By the way, Ray, who's your NBA team? I guess you don't have one since you think basketball is boring.
Oh, believe me, I've got a team.
Oh.
Dallas Mavericks.
Oh.
Mute.
Okay, then. Cool. Yeah. I'm going to remember that. Totally going to remember that one. Oh, boy. No, seriously, back to your point, though. You're not going to have teams spending the money for a player that isn't playing well. And even if he plays well, if he's not playing up to $13 million well, he's not going to get signed by some other team. You're going to have a hard time trading him in MLS because nobody's going to want to pay for his salary, like you said. So what do you do with him? You're going to have to let him go, which means, and I guarantee you he's got a waiver clause in his contract that says he makes a lot of money if the team releases him.
Yes.
You know, it's one of those things that just doesn't make sense. And I think the thing is Atlanta sees it as, you know, oh, okay, we have the money, let's do it. It's a player we believe in from a scouting standpoint. But here's the thing. You miss on a player like that, you have to go find another player like that and hope that you don't miss on him. Because, again, your fans are not going to accept a guy that you're paying $10 million to get. They're not going to accept a player you're paying less money to, no matter who he is, because the hype is not going to be there. And I'm just telling you right now, Atlanta fans are in for a seriously sour season.
They're in for a rude awakening.
Even if the team doesn't struggle, if they're going to struggle at times. But even if the team doesn't struggle in terms of points on the season, fans are still going to be unhappy with however they perform because it's not going to be, they're not going to be steamrolling teams like they were last season. There's going to be a lot of close matches, and they're going to have to eke out some wins that are going to be, knock them out, drag them down slugfests. I just don't see Atlanta winning that way, especially without a Joseph Martinez up top to score goals for you, especially if Almiron does leave. And, I mean, again, Pitti is great, but he's got to learn MLS. Yeah. And there's going to be a serious learning curve there. And Barco, he hadn't learned yet. So it's just I struggle with it. That's what I'm saying. I struggle with it. And I find that there's so many people out there that believe that that's the only way you can conduct business is to spend a bunch of money. And I'm like, you clearly have spent no time in business. Because in business, you don't spend that much money unless you're guaranteed to get the money back. Mm-hmm. It's all about the return on the investment you're making. And if your return on investment is zero or not as much as you invested, and you're making a loss on the amount that you spent, that's hard as a business person to swallow. Mm-hmm. Because you, especially in Arthur Blank, you made your money by being profitable. You didn't make your money by constantly running at loss. So, I struggle with it. And again, with Tata not there, can Bocanegra be the guy to find those players that are good enough to play for them? We'll find out after Tata's fully gone. I think Pitti is a Tata signing. I don't think he's a Boca signing yet. Because what else have we heard? If Almiron leaves and they don't sign anybody other than Pitti, that's going to be a hard pill for Atlanta fans to swallow. But we'll see. And they also lost Greg Garza, who, don't get me wrong, they have a replacement for him, but that's not a veteran player. And that's going to be a player that on a team with that defense that struggles at times defensively, that's a huge hole. And if there's one team in this league that can exploit that particular hole, guess who it is? It's the Dynamo. With that being said, we have 12 minutes left. What would you like to talk about, Ray or Edson or anybody in chat?
Let's give our guest
first dibs.
Yes.
Ray, we'll talk anything. We'll talk Barracudas if you want.
No.
Well, I'll tell you.
That has its own story of terrors to talk about.
Terrors to talk about. That was very alliteration. I'm impressed, sir. You're a writer, aren't you? I'm just kidding. Sorry.
A little bit. I'm giving you a bit of a writer.
No, seriously, what do you want to talk about? We'll talk about anything. We got 12 minutes.
MLS playoff format change?
Oh!
We forgot about that. But yes,
dude,
thank you for bringing that up.
It's like you read my mind. Yes, I don't actually have it on my phone. I don't even want to pull my phone out.
Yeah.
So the format changes 2019. I did actually write that I wanted you to open it up, but I didn't tell you to do that. 2019 format is going to change. And the way it's going to change is basically the top points getting team in each conference are going to get a bye the first week of the playoffs, or first round of the playoffs. And then the other 6 teams will play each other. Other 6 teams will play each other. So that's going to leave you with 4 matches in the second round as the first team. The first team comes in.
Well, here's what I don't. about this format.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to be playing 2 legs in the first round,
they're not. They're not.
It's just going to be single legs.
Everything from this point forward will be single elimination. Yes. They're getting rid of the home and away format because A, it helps them shorten playoff times, and B, it allows them to actually give a little bit of break between each round.
So even in the conference semifinal,
yep,
and even in the finals,
every round will be a knockout round. The other thing is they wanted to increase the emphasis on winning in the regular season. And home field advantage and having that throughout the playoffs now, that actually means something. Because now that means that every match you play is at your home. And that in soccer terms, that's a huge victory.
So, in other words, say Houston comes out to be a 3 seed, just using it as an example. Number 1 team gets eliminated. Number 2 team gets eliminated. So that just opens up possibility for to host.
So basically how it is now is 7 teams from each conference will make it to the next round.
Yep.
And this playoff structure will follow similarly to Ascenso MX, in which the number 1 seed of each conference gets a bye into the conference semifinals. And so the round 1 will be 4th and 5th, 3rd versus 6th, and 2nd versus 7th. And
you see, that's what I don't like right there. It's okay. I'm going to stop you right there. Okay. I don't like that 2v7, 3v6, 4v5. Here's how I would tweak it. Okay. I would have 6 versus 7. The winner of that leg there, or that of that draw, gets to play the number 1 seed regardless. Now, winners 2 and 3 and 4 or make it winners of, let's go 2 and 5
and 3 and 4.
3 and 4 meeting the other 2 legs, and therefore you get your other 2 semifinalists.
Well, but see,
in that regard.
Here's the reason why they're going with the format that they're going with, because you're still awarding somewhat of a home field advantage to an advantage to the 2nd place team and the 3rd place team. It makes sense when you think about it, because they're playing the 2 lowest seeds in the first round, which means they should theoretically advance to the next round. And then they will ultimately play each other. So that will work itself out. And then it's 4v5, which means it's your 2 teams that plays closest together are the ones that are going to face off against each other in the first round, and then they go conference semifinals against the first team. Ultimately, what this is intended to do is to give a 1, 2, 3, 4 with 1 and 4 and 2 and 3 going against each other in each conference. But ultimately, it's going to change year over year, because different teams are going to experience injuries, are going to experience yellow card accumulations, etc. That is the one thing that this does benefit strongly, is yellow card accumulation is not as big a deal when there's only 1 match per round. Because now you could theoretically have a player that gets a yellow card in round 1. There's only 1 match in the semifinal, so they don't get a yellow card in the semifinal. They could get a yellow card in the final, but in the conference final, but it's not going to matter because MLS Cup is next, and yellow card accumulation does not carry over to MLS Cup. Whereas before, you would play 4 to 5 matches before you got to the conference final, or before you got to the conference final, or in the conference final. At that point, 4 to 5 matches to only get 2 yellow cards, that's a lot of matches to have to go without a yellow card, especially if you're a center midfielder or something like that. So this helps eliminate that. The other thing it does, and the numbers don't matter as much in terms of who plays who, but it's about the time frame that they're going to play this in. It's a lot more condensed. We're not spanning across 2.5 months worth of time. Now it's really just 3 weeks of the 3.5 weeks of the postseason.
Yeah, so pretty much in between FIFA international breaks.
Yep.
At least this is what this leaked image shows.
It's what it's supposed to, and there is a possibility that you're going to have teams that get affected on the front end and the back end. That's going to be rare. Because of the international break right before it and right after it. But I also think that, they're saying the projected decision day for 2019, i.e. the last day of the regular season, is the 4th. So you're still, or 6th. So you're still giving a full week and a half before the first game start. This year, it was 2 days of rest for some teams.
Yes.
And so this is a much better format in that it gives that full week and a half for players to rest up. If they go off on international duty, that's on them. But then they come back, and you're going to be playing 4 matches or 5 matches, really, if you make it all the way through the playoffs in 1, 2, 3.5 weeks. That's a reasonable amount of time to play 5 matches. It's still going to be grueling. If you play one every 4 days, that should actually, you may even have a few extra days there. So you could play, one every 7. Well, you can't play one every 7 days. One every 6 days might work. But it's one every so often in that amount of time. But you're actually getting 2 to 3 days rest, whereas before sometimes you would only get a day and a half, 2 days rest for some teams that were playing in the playoffs. So this, I think, balances better. It allows all teams to be on a more level playing field, which I think will be much better. And Cisco made the mention too that too many times the team that plays the first leg at home at home. So it's the first team that's at home. They play the first leg and they go up by 2+ goals and they end up winning the matchup. So that's the lower seed the lower seed team winning because they get the first match at home. This just means that basically home field advantage is going to be a big deal in the playoffs going forward. And I like that they're shortening the playoffs. I was sick of how long the playoffs ran. It increased the likelihood of players being injured at that point in the season. It increased the likelihood of a really ugly-looking MLS Cup final or semifinals for that matter, because you had teams parking the bus. You had teams that, they wanted to try to go out and score goals, but because it was a 2-leg situation, they didn't want to put everything into that first leg. I think this is going to ultimately end up with more exciting matches in the playoffs. You're going to see a lot more teams pushing very early on in the playoff or in the matches, and I think you're going to see some teams that wear down by the end of some of these matches, and you're going to see a really interesting thing where you're going to see 3, 4, 5 goals, just like we have in the second leg of most of these matches or most of these playoffs. You're going to see the same type of thing where you see a bunch of goals real quick right after one another. Cisco says another plus about the new format is you don't have only 2 days to sell tickets. That's a huge one, too. You have to sell tickets, and you can't do that in 2 days. And he makes the note that those knockout round attendances were rough, and he's right because they were weekday matches compounded with very short turnaround times to sell the tickets. I think this, at least because you have the international week before, gives teams a chance to sell those tickets that week before after they found out if they've made it on decision day. And then you have time to know. And I think what you're going to see is because of the shortness of the playoffs themselves in terms of how quickly these are going to go, I think you're going to see a lot of teams that just go ahead and sell packages for the entire playoffs. Unfortunately, teams that don't make it, those fans are just going to have to figure out how to, they're just going to absorb the cost, whatever it may be. But I think you're going to see a lot of teams try to do that. Just because it kind of makes sense for how they're trying to format. With that being said, any closing thoughts, Ray? It is time to call it a night. We have #MadeIt3.
No, I mean, it's all, and I thank you guys for the platform. Thank you, Sean, for putting me on a roast notice for today. Edson, thank you so much. I hope if there isn't another show, I just wish you guys the happiest of holiday seasons with your loved ones and friends and families, and hope to reconvene soon in 2019.
For sure, sir. We will definitely catch up when the new year hits for sure. This is our last show as well for the year. We have moved.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Ray. We appreciate you coming on, man. Have a good night.
Hey, no problem. Thank you.
Have a good night, man.
So closing thoughts, Edson?
Pretty much, just be patient, RGV fans. Even though it's going to be hard for me to fulfill personally.
It's Christmas time. It's okay to be patient.
But I think if we continue to trust Sean and trust the process, I think good things are coming for 2019. And
I guess we'll see, won't we?
Yeah, definitely. And as far as the Dynamo goes,
that was meme worthy. That was pretty cool.
And as far as the Dynamo goes, I think that it's not going to be as bad as this last season.
It's going to be hard to be as bad as this past season was. And even this past season, I mean, and I know there are those that don't get this, but U.S. Open Cup was a really big deal for us, for the Dynamo. And sure, we struggled in the regular season at times, But we did Open Cup without Cabezas. And that just shows that this team, it had the depth to be good enough to win. And it was really good to see those players that did ultimately end up retiring. I'm looking at you, Andrew Wenger, and you, Dylan Remick. That those players that did end up retiring, that they got that final last celebration with a trophy. That was awesome. And I'm so happy that it was here in Houston, and we all got to enjoy it.
We all got to enjoy Trusty scoring an own goal.
Oh, dude, that Trusty own goal was fantastic. Oh, and it was the perfect timing for it too. Like it's just everything was, and it was right in front of us. It was great. And like Blues fan said, we still won a cup. I completely agree about the cup. Why are you pissed about the Open Cup, or did you mean you pissed in the Open Cup? I didn't read that correctly, did I? I don't consider the season as bad, not even including winning Open Cup. No, we didn't have a bad season. I mean, we were on the cusp of making playoffs. I just think that a lot of people don't realize how close we were to making playoffs. Mm-hmm. 2 results go our way, we're in the playoffs. That's pretty crazy, really, when you think about it. I mean, it just, seasons change on 1 or 2 results. And last season, with the injuries we had, those 1 or 2 results were not likely to go our way. This coming season, if players can stay reasonably healthy, I think this team has a really good shot to not just make playoffs, but make some noise in the playoffs. And Elise and Kyoto are going to come in guns blazing. Yeah. Kyoto's not going to be slow to start this season because Kyoto, this offseason, is not going to injure himself like he did last season. And so he'll be coming in, and he's not going to miss he's not going to miss preseason. He's going to want to play, just like Elise, in CCL right out of the gate. So these players, this year, they have something they're playing for from day one of preseason training camp. And really even kind of before training camp. And then that 3-match run with Pro, yeah, that was terrible. Dude, and of course it was right during the World Cup. Thankfully, we're not going to lose referees this season to World Cup, where they're going to go and do that thing that they do, VAR in the World Cup. There's no VAR this season that we have to lose referees for, top referees, because we talked about that. Mm-hmm. When you lose your top referees that are very good at, or your better referees at VAR, your decisions start to make far less sense. And we saw it. It was horrible. VAR was horrible. Pro was horrible. And then they got reasonably better once those referees got back because your talent pool was a little bit deeper. But with that being said, guys,
before we leave, I just want to take time to thank everybody who liked this video, shared it, and I want to really thank all of those who have donated tonight. I want to thank I want to thank Harry for
that's dinner tonight, by the way.
I want to thank Harry for tipping $10. He says, "Keep up the great work."
Harry,
and then
he's probably not even there anymore.
Blues fan tipped $25.
That's up, Blues.
He says $1 for every single goal Mauro Manotas scored in the 2018 campaign.
That's right. It was the ICC.
This is a thanks for you both and for those behind the scenes that have given the Dynamo fans an avenue to reach out and speak about the many things about this great club. Thank you. And Anonymous, who tipped $4.20. Thank you.
$4.20. That's right. And on that note, $4.20, we are going away. We will be back sometime in January, February. Exact day and time to be announced.
Different format?
Different format. Yeah, different format for sure. You're not going to drive all the way to Webster?
Where's Webster?
Farther than here.
Yeah.
No. It's like 20 minutes further. Actually, no. That time of night, you wouldn't even get there till after 8 o'clock. From Cyprus.
Yeah, we'll just do it through Skype. There's the capability here.
I'm gonna have much better internet, so it'll be fun. I won't have people sponging off my internet.
Well, I already have internet in my new apartment. So
that's good. You're moving out this weekend, right?
Yes.
Awesome. The apartment to myself for a whole week.
Lols. All right. Thank you so much. Really
Cisco says he'll donate when he's not poor. He might have a new look. Yeah, no, it'll definitely be a new look because we will be doing, we're going to be working on a few different things. Yes, Baybrook area, Callow. I'm actually off NASA Parkway 1, over there behind Studio 80, if you know where that's at. Yeah, definitely some things coming down the pipe. I need to reach out to some specific people about that. But yeah, that's going to happen this month. I'm trying to solidify some details on that. But yeah, definitely new look for 2019 for sure. Not a hugely, vastly different new look for 2019, but a different look for 2019. And we will be working on a few things. So definitely stay tuned, stay plugged in, stay engaged. We're going to be on Twitter. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere with that. But there will be a couple of days where we may have to kind of put it on hold while we do our moving stuff. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Again, we really do appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't liked and shared the video, please like and share the video. And excuse me, yeah, buy fries. And subscribe to the channel. Actually, not buy fries. I'll tell you in Discord where it's at. Will I really, Sergio? Do we have to have Dynamo away watching parties at my apartment? I'm totally down for that, by the way. Stop. Oh, God. You guys are scaring me now.
Oh, no.
Make it 4. It's not happening, Cisco. Put it away. I need to go get dinner. I'm hungry.
I need to wake up early tomorrow.
Oh, that sucks. I don't have to. Oh, 8 o'clock. I can handle 8 o'clock. It's not fine. It's not that bad. Why do you have to wake up early tomorrow?
Well, I have to make up hours because I have to go pick up my passport, and I have an hour and a half to make up through the week.
Yikes! I made up for that at 11:30 to 1 o'clock this morning.
Well.
Anyways, seriously, thank you for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next year.
Happy holidays and a happy 2019 to you.
Merry Christmas, guys, and Happy New Year.
What he said. Thank you.
Forever Orange, Somos Toros, Dash TF on.
And we are Gen Orange. Have a good night.
We did it. Sync.